Leah Richardson stood outside Romano's, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, and felt her stomach twist into knots. The glass doors reflected her image back at her. A beautiful African-American woman in a simple blue dress she'd borrowed from her roommate, hair pulled back in a neat bun, looking completely out of place. Her phone buzzed for the third time. Monica again. Just go inside. Trust me. You deserve this. Deserve what, exactly? Leah wanted to text back. A fancy dinner she couldn't afford? A blind date with some guy Monica refused to describe beyond successful and kind? Leah had worked a double shift at City General Hospital yesterday, then spent her only day off this week helping her younger sister, Tasha, move into her college dorm. She was exhausted. The last thing she needed was awkward conversation with a stranger. But Monica had begged. Actually begged. And Monica never begged for anything. Leah pushed through the doors. The hostess, a thin woman in all black, looked her up and down with barely concealed judgment before checking her tablet. Name? Richardson. I'm meeting someone. Ah yes. Mr. Cross's table. Follow me. Mr. Cross. At least now she had a name. Leah followed the hostess through the dimly lit restaurant, past tables where people in designer clothes ate tiny portions of food that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. They walked toward a private section in the back, partially hidden by frosted glass panels. And then she saw him. The man sat alone at a table set for two, his back straight, his gaze fixed on the window overlooking the city lights. He wore a crisp white dress shirt and a deep red tie. His dark hair was neatly styled, his jaw sharp and clean-shaven. He looked to be in his early 30s, handsome in that polished, expensive way that made Leah feel even more out of place. But it was what she noticed next that made her freeze mid-step. The wheelchair. A sleek, modern wheelchair positioned at the head of the table. His hands rested on the armrests and she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself like he was bracing for impact. The hostess gestured to the empty chair. Your date is here, Mr. Cross. The man turned and Leah found herself looking into the saddest eyes she'd ever seen. They were a striking gray blue, the kind of eyes that could probably charm anyone in a room, but right now they held nothing but exhaustion and something that looked like resignation. Thank you, he said to the hostess, his voice deep and measured. Then to Leah, you must be Leah. I'm Ethan Cross. Please sit down. Leah stood there, her purse clutched in both hands, her mind racing. Monica hadn't mentioned this. Not a single word about a wheelchair, about a disability, about any of it. Anger flashed through her, hot and sharp. How could Monica set her up like this? How could she not warn her? But as those thoughts screamed through her mind, another voice whispered underneath. Look at him. Look at how he's waiting for you to run. Ethan's jaw tightened. I understand if you want to leave. Most people do. His voice was flat, factual, like he'd said these exact words before. Many times before. Leah's heart cracked a little. She thought about walking out. It would be so easy. She could text Monica later, tell her this was too much, too weird, too complicated. She had enough on her plate already. She thought about her morning. About Mrs. Chin in room 304 who'd squeezed her hand and said, You're the only one who sees me, not just my illness. About the way people looked past her patients sometimes, especially the ones with visible disabilities, as if they were less than human. Leah took a breath and moved to the chair. She sat down, setting her purse on the table, and met Ethan's surprised gaze directly. I'm Leah Richardson. It's nice to meet you, Ethan. She kept her voice steady, warm, even. And I'm starving, so I really hope the food here is as good as everyone says. Something flickered across Ethan's face. Surprise maybe. Or disbelief. His shoulders relaxed just a fraction. It is. I promise. He paused, studying her like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Monica didn't tell you, did she? About me? No, Leah admitted. She didn't. But I'm here now, and I don't waste perfectly good dinner reservations. A small smile tugged at the corner of Ethan's mouth, the first real expression she'd seen from him. Practical. I like that. The waiter appeared with menus and water, and Leah focused on the list of dishes she couldn't pronounce. Everything was in Italian or French with no prices listed. That meant expensive. Really expensive. Order whatever you want, Ethan said quietly. Please. I know Monica probably didn't explain much about tonight, but I promise this isn't some kind of trick or joke. I just wanted to have dinner with someone who might actually talk to me like I'm a person. The vulnerability in his voice made Leah look up from her menu. The sadness was back in his eyes, deeper now, like an old wound that never quite healed. How long has it been? She asked gently. Since someone did that? Ethan's laugh was bitter. 2 years, 1 month, and 16 days. Since the accident that put me in this chair. Since my fiancé walked out of my hospital room and never came back. Since my family decided I was too much trouble to deal with. Since my friends stopped calling. He picked up his water glass, his hand completely steady despite the emotion in his voice. So yeah, it's been a while. Leah felt her throat tighten. 2 years. More than 2 years of being alone, being abandoned, being treated like he was invisible or broken or not worth the effort. She couldn't imagine it. Didn't want to imagine it. I'm sorry, she said and meant it. That's cruel. You didn't deserve that. Didn't I? Ethan's smile was sharp now, defensive. I'm not the man I used to be. I can't walk. I can't do half the things I used to do. Why would anyone want to stay? Because you're still you, Leah said simply. Your legs don't define who you are as a person. Anyone who left because of the wheelchair wasn't worth keeping anyway. Ethan stared at her, something shifting in his expression. The walls he'd built around himself seemed to crack just a little. You don't even know me. Not yet, Leah agreed. But I'd like to. If you're willing to give this weird, unexpected dinner a chance. The waiter returned and they ordered. Leah chose the pasta, Ethan the fish. As they waited for their food, the conversation started slowly, carefully, like two people testing the ice on a frozen lake. Ethan told her about his company, a tech firm he'd built from nothing that now employed over 300 people. About how he still ran it from home, attending board meetings via video call because the office building wasn't as accessible as he needed it to be. About his physical therapy sessions 3 times a week that left him exhausted and frustrated. Leah told him about her work as a nurse, about the patients she cared for and the impossible hours. About her sister Tasha, who was starting her sophomore year of college studying environmental science. About her mother who'd had a stroke last year and was still recovering, slowly but steadily. You take care of a lot of people, Ethan observed. Someone has to, Leah said. Besides, it's what I'm good at. What about taking care of yourself? The question caught her off guard. Leah laughed, but it sounded hollow even to her own ears. I'm fine. I manage. That's not what I asked. Their food arrived, saving her from having to answer. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and Leah had to admit the pasta was incredible. Rich and creamy and perfectly seasoned. Worth every penny she wasn't paying. Can I ask you something? Ethan said eventually. Sure. Why did you stay? When you saw the wheelchair, I could see it in your face. You wanted to leave. But you didn't. Why? Leah set down her fork and met his eyes. Because I saw you waiting for me to run. And I know what it feels like when people look at you and only see what's wrong, what's hard, what's inconvenient. I didn't want to be another person who did that to you. Ethan's throat worked as he swallowed. Thank you, he said, his voice rough. You have no idea what that means. They finished dinner talking about everything and nothing. Books they'd read, shows they'd watched, places they wanted to travel. Ethan had been to Paris and Tokyo and Sydney. Leah had barely left the state. But he listened to her talk about wanting to see the ocean, really see it, not just on a weekend trip but with time to sit and watch the waves like it was the most interesting thing he'd heard in years. When the waiter brought the check, Ethan handed over a black credit card without looking at the total. Then he turned to Leah with an expression that was hard to read. There's something I need to tell you, he said. About tonight. About how this date came to be. Leah's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Monica didn't just decide to set us up out of the goodness of her heart. My assistant Gerald paid her $5,000 to find someone who would agree to have dinner with me. The restaurant suddenly felt too small, too hot. Leah's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You paid for this date? Not exactly. I didn't know Gerald had done it until this morning. He's been worried about me, said I needed to get out to meet people. When I found out, I almost canceled. But then I thought about sitting alone in my house again, eating dinner by myself again, and I just couldn't do it. Ethan's hands gripped the armrests of his wheelchair. I'm sorry. You have every right to be angry. But I wanted you to know the truth. Leah sat back in her chair, processing. Monica had taken money to set her up. Her best friend had literally sold her out. But as angry as that made her, she couldn't ignore the desperation in Ethan's voice, the loneliness that radiated from him like cold air from an open freezer. Why didn't you just hire someone? She asked. An escort service or a companion agency? Why go through this whole setup? Because I don't want someone who's pretending, Ethan said quietly. I wanted something real, even if it was just for one night. Even if it was built on a lie. He laughed, the sound self-deprecating. Pathetic, isn't it? No, Leah said. It's human. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Leah made a decision. I should go. This is a lot to process. Of course. Ethan's face closed off again, the walls slamming back into place. Thank you for staying as long as you did. Leah stood, grabbed her purse and walked around the table. She stopped next to Ethan's wheelchair and held out her hand. Give me your phone. He blinked up at her. What? Your phone. Give it to me. Confused, Ethan pulled his phone from his pocket and handed it to her. Leah typed in her number and called herself so she'd have his too. Then she handed it back. I'm going home now because I need to have a very serious conversation with Monica about boundaries and honesty. But I'm not disappearing. If you want to talk, if you want to have coffee or dinner again, you can call me. Not Gerald. Not some paid setup. You. Ethan stared at her like she'd just spoken in a foreign language. You'd actually want to see me again? I wouldn't have given you my number if I didn't. Leah smiled. Besides, you promised the food here was good and you were right. I trust your judgment. I don't know what to say. Say goodnight, Ethan. And maybe text me tomorrow. She left before he could respond, walking out of Romano's into the cool night air. Her heart was pounding, her mind racing. She'd just given her number to a man she barely knew, a billionaire in a wheelchair who'd paid her friend to set them up. It was ridiculous. It was complicated. It was possibly the worst decision she'd made in months. But as she climbed into her old sedan and started the drive home, Leah couldn't stop thinking about those sad gray-blue eyes and the way Ethan had looked at her when she'd sat down and stayed. Like she'd given him something precious and rare. Like she'd given him hope. Have you ever been in a situation where staying felt harder than leaving, but you knew leaving would break someone? What would you have done in Leah's place? Drop a comment below and subscribe to see what happens when kindness meets loneliness. Will Leah's decision to stay change both their lives, or will the truth about their arranged meeting tear them apart before they even begin? Leah didn't make it home before her phone started ringing. Monica's name flashed on the screen 3 times before Leah finally pulled over into a gas station parking lot and answered. Before you yell at me, Monica said immediately, let me explain. You took $5,000 to set me up on a blind date without telling me anything about the guy. What possible explanation makes that okay? Leah's voice was sharp, cutting. Monica sighed. I know it looks bad. But Leah, you should have seen this man's assistant when he approached me. Gerald was desperate. He said his boss hadn't left the house for anything social in over a year. That he'd given up on everything except work. That he needed someone genuine, someone kind, and he'd heard me talking about you at the coffee shop. So you sold me out. I introduced you to someone who needed exactly what you're good at giving. Compassion. And yes, I took the money because I knew you'd never agree if you knew about it up front. You would have made excuses, said you were too busy, too tired, too broke to buy a nice dress. So I made the decision for you. Leah pressed her forehead against the steering wheel. You should have told me the truth. Would you have gone? Silence. Exactly, Monica said softly. Look, I know I crossed a line. But tell me honestly. Now that you've met him, are you glad you went? Leah thought about Ethan's face when she'd sat down. The surprise, the fragile hope, the way he'd slowly relaxed as they talked. She thought about 2 years of isolation, of abandonment, of being treated like he wasn't worth the effort anymore. I don't know yet, Leah admitted. But Monica, you can't do things like this. You can't make decisions about my life without talking to me first. I know. I'm sorry. Really sorry. Are we okay? Not yet. But we will be. Eventually. They hung up, and Leah sat in her car for a long time, watching people come and go from the gas station. Regular people with regular lives, pumping gas and buying snacks and moving through their normal Thursday night routines. None of them had just had dinner with a lonely billionaire. None of them were sitting here wondering what they'd gotten themselves into. Her phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. This is Ethan. I wanted to say thank you again for tonight. You didn't have to be kind, but you were. That meant more than you know. Leah saved his number and typed back. You're welcome. Get home safe. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I'm still at the restaurant. In my van in the parking lot. I didn't want to leave yet. The evening felt too good to let go of. Something in Leah's chest tightened. She could picture him sitting alone in a vehicle modified for his wheelchair, holding on to the memory of a few hours where someone had treated him like he mattered. Are you always this honest? She texted back. Only with people who deserve honesty. You stayed when you didn't have to. That makes you rare. Leah smiled despite herself. I work tomorrow morning at 6. Early shift. But I'm off tomorrow evening. Coffee? The response came immediately. Yes. Absolutely yes. There's a place called BA's Cafe on Maple Street. It's accessible and quiet. 7 o'clock. 7 works. See you then. Good night, Leah. Sleep well. She drove home to her small apartment feeling lighter somehow, like she'd set down a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. Inside she found her roommate, Tasha's friend Jasmine. Wait, no. She found her roommate, Rachel, watching reality TV on their second-hand couch. How was the mystery date? Rachel asked. Complicated, Leah said, kicking off her borrowed heels. But interesting. Interesting good or interesting bad? I honestly don't know yet. That night, Leah lay in bed thinking about everything Ethan had told her. About being abandoned by his fiancée, his family, his friends. About living alone in what was probably a huge, empty house with only paid staff for company. About how he described his life in the 2 years since his accident. Functional but hollow, productive but meaningless. She knew that kind of loneliness. Not the same circumstances but the feeling. After her father died when she was 19, leaving her to care for her younger sister and help her mother, Leah had watched her friends move on with their lives while she stayed behind, working double shifts and missing parties and gradually becoming invisible to people who used to call her daily. Being needed and being wanted weren't the same thing. Leah had learned that the hard way. Maybe that's why she'd stayed at dinner. Maybe she recognized in Ethan something she understood too well. The exhaustion of being strong because you had no other choice, and the desperate hope that someone might see past the armor to the person underneath. Her phone buzzed one more time before she fell asleep. I know it's late, but I wanted you to know. I haven't looked forward to tomorrow in a very long time. Thank you for that. Good night. Leah smiled in the darkness and typed back, Good night, Ethan. Tomorrow will be good. I promise. The next day crawled by in a blur of patient rounds, medication schedules, and the controlled chaos of the hospital. Leah's feet ached, her back hurt, and she'd skipped lunch because Mrs. Patterson in 412 had been having a panic attack and needed someone to sit with her. By the time her shift ended at 3, Leah was running on fumes and caffeine. She went home, showered, and changed into jeans and a comfortable green sweater. Nothing fancy. This was just coffee, just conversation. Low pressure. But her hands shook slightly as she applied mascara, and she changed her earrings twice before settling on simple silver hoops. You're nervous, Rachel observed from the doorway. I'm not nervous. You're totally nervous. Is this the mystery date guy? Yes. And it's not a date. It's coffee. Coffee is absolutely a date. Rachel grinned. Is he cute? Leah thought about Ethan's sharp jaw and sad eyes and the way his whole face had changed when he smiled. Very. But it's complicated. The good ones always are. BA's Cafe sat on a quiet corner of Maple Street, a small brick building with wide doors and a ramp leading to the entrance. Leah arrived 10 minutes early and found Ethan already there, sitting at a corner table by the window. He'd changed into a dark blue sweater that made his eyes look even more striking, and his face lit up when he saw her walk in. You came, he said, and there was genuine relief in his voice. I said I would. Leah sat down across from him. Did you think I wouldn't? I wasn't sure. People say a lot of things. They don't always mean them. The barista came over, a college-age guy with bleached hair and a nose ring. He took their orders without the judgment or pity Leah had half expected to see when he looked at Ethan's wheelchair. Just normal, casual service. When he left, Ethan leaned forward slightly. I need to be completely honest with you about something else. About why Gerald set up that dinner and what I was hoping to find. Leah's stomach clenched. Okay. After my accident, after everyone left, I tried to keep going. I did my physical therapy, I worked from home, I told myself I was fine. But I wasn't fine. I was barely existing. 6 months ago, my therapist told me I was isolating myself to the point of depression. She said I needed to rebuild connections, to let people in again, to remember what it felt like to be seen as a person instead of a tragedy. He paused as their drinks arrived. Black coffee for him, a latte for her. Ethan wrapped his hands around his cup like he was trying to absorb its warmth. Gerald has been with me since before the accident. He's more than an assistant, he's a friend. The only one who didn't disappear. When he suggested finding someone to have dinner with, I was angry at first. Humiliated. But then I realized he was right. I couldn't keep living like this, cut off from everything except work and doctor's appointments. Ethan met her eyes. So yes, he paid Monica. And yes, I knew about it before dinner, even though I told you I didn't. I lied because I was ashamed. Leah absorbed this quietly. Why are you telling me now? Because I don't want to build anything, friendship or otherwise, on lies. You deserve the truth. All of it. Even if it means you walk away. She studied him for a long moment. The tension in his shoulders, the vulnerability in his eyes, the way he held himself like he was bracing for rejection. Again. I appreciate your honesty, Leah said finally. And I'm not walking away. But I need you to understand something too. I don't do well with manipulation or hidden agendas. If we're going to be friends, if we're going to spend time together, it has to be based on truth. Always. Can you promise me that? Yes, Ethan said immediately. Absolutely yes. Okay then. Leah picked up her latte. Tell me about your company. You said you built it from nothing. How does that even happen? Relief flooded Ethan's face and he started talking. Really talking. About how he'd started coding when he was 12, building simple games and websites. About his first tech job out of college, working 80-hour weeks for a startup that eventually crashed and burned. About taking everything he'd learned and every connection he'd made and starting his own firm at 26 with 2 employees and a dream that seemed ridiculous. We developed software for small businesses, inventory management and customer tracking systems that were affordable and easy to use. Everyone else in the market was targeting big corporations, charging enormous fees, making everything complicated. I wanted to help the little guys, the family restaurants and local shops and people just trying to make a living. That's beautiful, Leah said. Really? Most tech companies seem to forget about regular people. That's what my father said right before he told me I was wasting my potential. Ethan's smile turned bitter. He wanted me to go into finance like him. Make real money, he said. Join a firm with prestige. Instead, I built something that actually helped people and he never forgave me for it. Is that why he left after the accident? Because you'd already disappointed him? Partially. But mostly because taking care of a disabled son didn't fit his image. Too messy, too complicated, too much work. He visited me once in the hospital, said he'd arranged for the best care money could buy, and then I never saw him again. My mother calls on my birthday. That's it. Leah reached across the table and put her hand over his. I'm sorry. You deserved better than that. Ethan stared at their joined hands like he couldn't quite believe it was happening. You keep saying that. But you don't even know me. I'm learning. And so far, everything I'm learning says you're a good person who got dealt a terrible hand. That doesn't make you less worthy of love or friendship or basic human decency. My fiancée didn't think so. Brittany walked into my hospital room 3 days after the accident, looked at me in traction with tubes everywhere, and said she couldn't do this. That she'd signed up to marry a man who could take her dancing, who could travel, who could give her the life she'd imagined. Not someone who might never walk again. Ethan's voice cracked slightly. She left her engagement ring on my bedside table and walked out. I haven't heard from her since. Then she was a coward, Leah said firmly. And you're better off without her. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, better off looks a lot like completely alone. You're not alone right now. No, Ethan agreed softly. I'm not. And that's terrifying because I keep waiting for you to realize this is too much trouble and leave too. Leah squeezed his hand. I work with sick people every single day. People who need help bathing, eating, moving. People who are scared and in pain and worried they're too much of a burden. And you know what I learned? Caring about someone isn't measured by how easy they are to care for. It's measured by whether they're worth it. And Ethan, from everything you've told me, you're worth it. He looked at her with such raw emotion that Leah almost couldn't breathe. How are you real? I'm not special. I'm just a person who thinks you deserve kindness. They talked for 2 more hours until the cafe staff started cleaning up around them and giving pointed looks at the clock. Ethan told her about his physical therapy, about the progress he'd made and the limitations he still faced. About how he could transfer himself from his wheelchair with the right equipment, how he'd regained some sensation in his legs but probably would never walk normally again. Leah told him about her patients, about Mrs. Chin who thought Leah was her daughter sometimes, about the teenager in the cancer ward who made jokes to hide his fear, about the elderly man who held his wife's hand through every treatment and never once complained about how hard it was. You love your job, Ethan observed. I do. Even when it's exhausting and heartbreaking and I come home too tired to eat. Because sometimes I get to make a difference. Even if it's small. That's all any of us can hope for, isn't it? To make some kind of difference. They left the cafe together, walking slowly through the cool evening air. Ethan's wheelchair was electric, smooth and quiet as it moved along the sidewalk. He maneuvered around obstacles with practiced ease, but Leah noticed how people on the street either stared or deliberately looked away, how no one met his eyes directly. Does that bother you? She asked. The way people react? Every single day. But I'm used to it now. The staring, the pity, the awkwardness. People don't know how to act around disability, so they either treat you like a child or pretend you don't exist. He glanced up at her. You're the first person in 2 years who's looked at me like I'm just a regular person. You are a regular person. Tell that to the rest of the world. They reached his van, a large vehicle with a lift for his wheelchair. The driver, an older man with kind eyes, nodded at Leah politely but didn't comment on her presence. Can I see you again? Ethan asked. Soon? Yes. But Ethan, I need to know something first. What are you looking for here? Friendship? Something more? Because I need to manage my expectations. He was quiet for a moment, thinking. Honestly? I don't know. I haven't let myself think about relationships or dating since Brittany left. But I know I feel better when I'm talking to you. I know I smiled more in the last 2 days than I have in 2 years. And I know I want to keep feeling that way, whatever that means. That's fair, Leah said. How about this? We keep spending time together, getting to know each other, and we figure it out as we go. No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 people enjoying each other's company. I'd like that very much. Ethan reached for her hand and held it gently. Thank you, Leah. For everything. For staying, for coming tonight, for not running away from all my baggage. Everyone has baggage. Yours just happens to come with wheels. He laughed, a real laugh that transformed his whole face. Did you just make a wheelchair joke? Too soon. No. It's perfect. You're perfect. Leah felt her cheeks warm. I'm really not. But I appreciate the sentiment. She watched him get into the van, watched the lift raise his wheelchair up and into the vehicle, watched him wave at her through the window as the driver pulled away. And she stood there on the sidewalk, her heart beating faster than it should, wondering what she'd just gotten herself into. Her phone buzzed with a text from Monica. So, how did it go? Are you still mad at me? Leah typed back, still processing. But I think you might have accidentally done something, right? Maybe. Does this mean I'm forgiven? Not yet. But you're getting there. Leah walked to her car, climbed inside, and sat in the darkness for a moment. She thought about Ethan's smile, his honesty, the way he'd held her hand like it was precious. She thought about how isolated he'd been, how much courage it must have taken to arrange that dinner, to show up and risk rejection again. And she thought about how, despite all her reservations and all the complications, she was already looking forward to seeing him again. This was dangerous. This was exactly the kind of situation her practical brain warned her away from. Getting involved with someone who'd been abandoned, who was clearly vulnerable, who might be confusing genuine connection with gratitude for not running away. But her heart, the part of her that had drawn her to nursing in the first place, the part that believed in hope and healing and second chances, whispered something different. Maybe this was exactly where she was supposed to be. Maybe Ethan wasn't the only one who needed saving from loneliness. Maybe she'd been so busy taking care of everyone else that she'd forgotten what it felt like to be cared for in return. Leah started her car and headed home, a small smile playing at her lips. Tomorrow she'd probably overthink everything and list all the reasons this was a bad idea. But tonight, right now, she let herself feel the warmth of connection, the flutter of possibility, and the gentle hope that maybe, just maybe, something good was beginning. 3 weeks passed in a blur of coffee dates, phone calls, and text messages that made Leah smile at the most inconvenient times. She and Ethan fell into an easy rhythm. She'd stop by his house on her days off, bringing takeout and stories from the hospital. He'd share updates about his company, show her new software his team was developing, and make her laugh with dry observations about the world. Ethan's house was exactly what Leah expected from a tech billionaire. Modern, spacious, and meticulously designed for accessibility. Wide doorways, an elevator to the second floor, a pool with a lift system for therapy. But despite all its luxury, the place felt empty, sterile. Like a very expensive hotel room that nobody actually lived in. You need some color in here, Leah said one afternoon, standing in his massive living room with its white walls and minimalist furniture. Maybe some plants. Photographs. Something that shows a person actually lives here. Ethan, who'd been working on his laptop, looked up. I never really thought about it. Gerald handles the interior design. I just asked for functional. Functional is good. But a home should feel like a home, not a hospital. Something flickered in Ethan's eyes. You're not wrong. I've been treating this place like a waiting room. Somewhere to exist until I figure out what comes next. And have you? Figured out what comes next? I'm starting to. He closed his laptop and rolled closer to where she stood. Actually, that's something I wanted to talk to you about. Can we sit? They moved to the couch, a plush gray thing that was surprisingly comfortable. Ethan transferred from his wheelchair with practiced ease, and Leah sat next to him, close enough to see the nervous tension in his jaw. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing's wrong. I just have something to ask you and I'm worried about how you'll react." He took a breath. "My company is hosting a charity gala in 2 weeks. It's a big event, lots of press, lots of important people. I haven't attended one since the accident because the thought of being stared at, pitted, or worse, ignored, was too much to handle." "But you're thinking of going now?" "Yes, because of you. Because spending time with you has reminded me that I'm more than my disability. That I can still be part of the world instead of hiding from it." He met her eyes. "I want you to come with me. As my date." Leah's heart skipped. "Ethan, that's a huge event. I wouldn't know how to act, what to wear, any of it. I'm a nurse, not a socialite." "I know. And that's exactly why I want you there. Because you'll be real and honest and won't play the games everyone else plays. Because when people look at me with pity, you'll remind me that I'm worth more than their shallow judgments. I don't have anything to wear to a gala. I'll take care of that. Please, Leah. I can't do this alone. I don't want to do this alone." She saw the vulnerability in his face, the fear mixed with hope. How could she say no? "Okay. Yes. I'll go with you." Relief washed over him. "Thank you. Truly." They spent the rest of the afternoon planning. Ethan explained what the gala was for: raising money for technology education programs in underfunded schools. His company donated millions every year, but this event brought together other donors, created partnerships, and kept the cause in the public eye. "It matters to you," Leah observed. "Not just the business side but the actual cause. When I was a kid, our school barely had computers. Ancient things that could barely run word processors. I taught myself to code on a laptop my uncle gave me for Christmas, but most of my classmates never got that chance. Education shouldn't depend on how much money your parents have. Every kid deserves access to technology, to opportunities, to futures that aren't limited by circumstance." Leah felt her chest tighten with emotion. "You're a good man, Ethan Cross." "I'm trying to be. I haven't always been." "What does that mean?" He was quiet for a moment. "Before the accident, I was so focused on success, on proving my father wrong, on building something big enough to matter, that I missed a lot of other things. I didn't see my friends as often as I should have. I worked 70-hour weeks. I took Brittany for granted, assumed she'd always be there waiting while I chased the next goal. Maybe she was right to leave. Maybe I wasn't present enough to deserve her staying." "No," Leah said firmly. "The accident wasn't punishment for working hard. And leaving someone when they're hurt and vulnerable isn't justified by past neglect. If she had problems with your priorities, she should have communicated that, worked on it with you. Not waited until you were at your lowest to walk away. You always defend me. Because you deserve defending." Ethan reached for her hand, his fingers warm and strong. "I don't know what I did to deserve you coming into my life, but I'm grateful every single day. You didn't have to do anything. Sometimes good things just happen." They sat like that for a while, hands linked, comfortable silence stretching between them. Leah had learned that Ethan didn't always need conversation. Sometimes he just needed presence, the quiet assurance that someone was there and not leaving. Her phone buzzed with a text from the hospital. One of her favorite patients, Mrs. Patterson, had taken a turn for the worse. They thought Leah would want to know. "I have to go," she said reluctantly. "Work emergency." "Of course. Go. Do you need a ride?" "I have my car. But thank you." She stood to leave and Ethan rolled alongside her to the door. "Be safe. And Leah? I meant what I said. About being grateful." "I know. I'll call you later." She drove to the hospital, her mind split between worry for Mrs. Patterson and thoughts of Ethan. In 3 weeks, he'd become such a consistent part of her life that she couldn't imagine her days without their conversations. Without his dry humor, his intelligence, his surprising vulnerability. It was dangerous, this attachment. She knew that. Ethan was still recovering, still learning to live with his new reality. He might be confusing gratitude with deeper feelings. And Leah, who'd spent so much of her life caring for others, needed to be careful not to fall into the trap of becoming his caretaker instead of his equal. But when she was with him, none of those warnings seemed to matter. He made her laugh. He listened to her stories. He asked about her dreams and actually cared about the answers. For the first time in years, someone was taking care of her too, even if it was just in small ways like remembering how she took her coffee or asking if she'd eaten lunch. Mrs. Patterson stabilized after a few hours of tense monitoring. Leah stayed with her, holding her hand, talking quietly about nothing and everything. When the crisis passed and the elderly woman fell into peaceful sleep, Leah finally allowed herself to leave. It was past midnight when she got home. Rachel was already asleep. Leah collapsed into bed, exhausted, and found a text from Ethan waiting. "I hope everything is okay with your patient. Get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow." Simple words, but they made her smile. She typed back, "Everything's stable. Sleep well." The next morning, Leah woke to her phone ringing. Ethan's name on the screen. "Hello." Her voice was thick with sleep. "I'm sorry for calling so early. But I couldn't wait. I have something to ask you, and I need you to hear me out before you say no." Leah sat up, suddenly awake. "Okay. What is it?" "The gala is important, but it's not the real reason I wanted to talk to you. There's something else, something bigger, and I'm going to sound crazy, but I need to say it anyway." He took a breath. "I want to hire you." "What?" "Not as a nurse. As my companion. My friend. Someone to accompany me to events, to spend time with me, to help me navigate social situations that feel impossible alone. I'll pay you. Generously. Enough to cover your mother's medical bills, your sister's college tuition, everything you're struggling with." Leah's stomach dropped. "Ethan, I can't accept money for being your friend. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to consider a job. 6 months. You'd still work at the hospital if you wanted, but you'd also be available for events, meetings, social obligations. Think of it as a consulting position. I need someone I trust by my side, and you're the only person who fits that description." "This is insane." "I know. But Leah, you're drowning in debt. I see it in your face when you talk about picking up extra shifts, when you mention skipping meals to save money, when Tasha calls asking for help with textbooks. I can fix that. All of it. Not as charity, but as payment for a service I genuinely need. And what happens after 6 months? Whatever we want. Maybe we're still friends. Maybe we're more. Maybe we've gone our separate ways. But at least you won't be buried under bills you shouldn't have to carry alone." Leah's mind raced. Her mother's medical debt was crushing her. Tasha's college costs kept climbing. The hospital was cutting hours, reducing overtime pay. Every month was a careful balancing act of which bills to pay, which to delay, how to stretch every dollar. And here was Ethan offering to solve all of it. Offering her financial freedom in exchange for something she was already doing anyway, spending time with him. "This feels wrong," she said. "Like I'd be taking advantage of you. You'd be helping me. There's a difference. Leah, I've been alone for 2 years. Completely, devastatingly alone. Since you came into my life, I felt human again. That's worth everything to me. Let me help you the way you've helped me. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. But know that the offer is genuine. I'm not trying to buy you or trap you. I'm trying to give both of us something we need." They hung up and Leah sat in her bed, staring at the wall. Everything in her screamed that this was a terrible idea. That mixing friendship with financial transactions would ruin whatever connection they'd built. That accepting would change everything between them. But the practical part of her brain, the part that had been calculating debt and interest and payment plans for years, whispered something different. What if you could actually breathe? What if you could stop worrying about money for 5 minutes? What if you could focus on helping others instead of constantly struggling yourself? She spent the day at work in a daze, going through the motions of patient care while her mind churned through every angle of Ethan's offer. She thought about what it would mean: fancy events and borrowed dresses, pretending to fit into a world that wasn't hers, being seen as Ethan's charity case or worse, his paid companion in all the ways that phrase implied. But she also thought about Tasha graduating without crushing debt. About her mother getting better care. About not having to choose between groceries and gas money. That evening she drove to Ethan's house unannounced. Gerald answered the door, his expression neutral but kind. "Miss Richardson. Mr. Cross is in his office. Shall I let him know you're here? Please." She waited in the enormous foyer, nerves making her hands shake. This was either the best or worst decision of her life, and she wouldn't know which until it was too late to change course. Ethan appeared in the hallway, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Leah. I wasn't expecting you. I have an answer. About your offer." He went very still. "Okay. I'll do it. 6 months. But with conditions." Relief and joy warred across his features. "Name them." "Anything. First, we're honest with each other. Always. No more secrets, no more careful omissions. If something changes, if either of us develops feelings or wants to end the arrangement early, we say so immediately." "Agreed." "Second, I keep my job at the hospital. I won't quit or reduce my hours unless it's my choice. This arrangement works around my nursing schedule, not the other way around." Of course. Third, after 6 months we reevaluate. If we want to continue as friends, as something more, or go our separate ways, we discuss it honestly and part on good terms. Absolutely. Leah took a deep breath. And finally, the money goes directly to pay my debts. You set up payments to the hospital for my mom's bills, to Tasha's college for tuition. I don't want cash in hand. I don't want it to feel like I'm being paid. I want to know the burden is lifted without constantly thinking about the transaction. Ethan rolled closer, his eyes bright with emotion. Done. All of it. Leah, you have no idea what this means to me. I think I do. Because it means just as much to me. But Ethan, we have to be careful. We can't let this change what we have. I don't want money to come between us. It won't. I promise. This is just me taking care of someone I care about the way you've been taking care of me. He held out his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Leah shook it. The gesture felt formal, official, like they were sealing a business deal. Which technically they were. But when Ethan didn't let go, when his thumb traced gentle circles on the back of her hand, it felt like something more. Something that made Leah's heart race and her doubts temporarily quiet. Thank you, he said softly. For trusting me. For taking a chance on this. I won't let you down. And I won't let you down either. We're in this together now. Gerald appeared with paperwork, a contract that laid out everything they discussed in clear legal terms. Leah read through it carefully, making sure there were no hidden clauses or unexpected obligations. It was straightforward. 6 months, attendance at social and business events as requested, payment directly to her creditors, termination clause available to either party with 2 weeks' notice. She signed her name, and just like that, her life changed. Over the next few days, true to his word, Ethan arranged everything. Leah received confirmation that her mother's medical bills had been paid in full. Tasha called, crying with happiness, saying her college account showed a zero balance for the year. The weight Leah had been carrying for so long, the constant pressure of never having enough, suddenly lifted. She cried in her car outside the hospital, overwhelmed by relief and gratitude and the terrifying vulnerability of owing someone so much. Her phone rang. Ethan, are you okay? Gerald said the payments went through. I'm fine. Just processing. Leah, you don't owe me anything beyond what we agreed. Please don't feel indebted. This isn't about power or control. It's about 2 people helping each other. I know. Logically, I know that. But emotionally, it's a lot. Then come over. Let's talk it through. Or not talk. Whatever you need. She drove to his house, and they sat in his living room, the one she'd said needed more color. Ethan had bought plants, she noticed. 3 large ferns in bright blue pots positioned around the room. You listened, she said, smiling despite her tears. I always listened to you. They talked for hours. About fear and trust and the complicated dance of accepting help. About how hard it was for both of them to be vulnerable, to admit they needed someone. About the risk they were taking on each other. What if this doesn't work? Leah asked. What if 6 months from now we hate each other? Then we'll hate each other with clear consciences and no financial stress, Ethan said, making her laugh. But I don't think that's going to happen. Do you? No, she admitted. I think we're building something real. I'm just scared of what that means. So am I. But I'd rather be scared together than safe and alone. Leah leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture that felt natural despite how new everything still was. Okay. Together then. Whatever comes next. Whatever comes next, Ethan echoed. And for the first time in a very long time, Leah let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. The dress arrived 3 days before the gala in a box bigger than Leah's kitchen table. She opened it carefully, pulling back layers of tissue paper to reveal deep burgundy silk that caught the light like liquid garnets. It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. He spent how much? Rachel asked, eyes wide. I don't know and I don't want to know, Leah said, holding the dress up. It's too much. It's perfect. Try it on. The dress fit like it had been made for her body specifically. The color brought out the warmth in her dark skin, and the cut was elegant without being too revealing. Leah stared at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. You look like a princess, Rachel breathed. I look like I'm playing dress up in someone else's life. Maybe that's someone else's future you. The you that gets to attend fancy galas with handsome billionaires. Leah turned away from the mirror. This isn't my world, Rach. After 6 months I go back to my regular life. I need to remember that. Or maybe you don't have to go back. Maybe this is your chance at something bigger. Bigger doesn't mean better. I like my life. I like helping people, making a difference, doing work that matters. You can do all that and wear fancy dresses sometimes. The two aren't mutually exclusive. The night of the gala arrived faster than Leah expected. She spent an hour on her hair and makeup, going for simple elegance since she had no idea how to do anything more complicated. When the car Ethan sent arrived to pick her up, her hands were shaking. The driver took her to Ethan's house first. He was waiting in the foyer, wearing a tailored black suit with a burgundy tie that matched her dress. His wheelchair was different tonight, sleeker and more formal looking, almost elegant in its design. "You look stunning," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You clean up pretty well yourself. Are you ready for this?" "Absolutely not. But I'm here anyway." Ethan smiled, that real smile that made his whole face transform. "That's all I can ask for. Come on. Let's face the lions together." The venue was a historic hotel downtown, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers. A red carpet led to the entrance, lined with photographers and reporters. Leah's stomach dropped when she saw the cameras. "Breathe," Ethan said quietly as their car pulled up. "They're going to take pictures. They're going to ask questions. You don't have to answer anything you don't want to. Just stay close to me." The driver opened the door and suddenly they were out on the carpet, flashbulbs exploding like small suns. Leah tried to smile naturally, but her face felt frozen. Ethan, meanwhile, handled it like he'd been doing this his whole life. Confident, charming, giving the photographers exactly what they wanted. "Mr. Cross, who's your date tonight?" "This is Leah Richardson. She's a very talented nurse and an even better person." "How long have you two been together?" "We're taking things one day at a time. Now if you'll excuse us." He navigated through the crowd with practiced ease, and Leah followed, acutely aware of the stares, the whispers, the way people looked at them with curiosity and speculation. Inside, the ballroom was even more impressive. Round tables covered in white linens, centerpieces of white roses and candles, a stage at the far end where a string quartet played classical music. People in formal wear milled about, champagne glasses in hand, laughter and conversation filling the air. Ethan Cross. A tall man in his 60s approached, hand extended. "Good to see you, son. We were starting to think you'd become a hermit." "Just taking some time to regroup, Thomas. This is Leah Richardson." "Leah, Thomas Hendricks, one of our biggest donors." "Lovely to meet you," Thomas said, his gaze assessing. "How did you two meet?" "Mutual friends," Leah said smoothly, surprising herself with how natural the lie sounded. "Ethan tells me your foundation has provided computers to over 50 schools this year." "That's remarkable." Thomas's face lit up, and he launched into a detailed explanation of the program. Leah listened, asked intelligent questions, and watched as the older man's initial skepticism turned to genuine warmth. By the time he excused himself, he was smiling. "Nicely done," Ethan murmured. "You're a natural at this. I talked to worried family members all day at the hospital. Same skills, fancier dress." They made the rounds, meeting donor after donor, businessman after businessman. Leah noticed how people reacted to Ethan's wheelchair. Some were openly uncomfortable, standing at awkward distances or talking to Leah instead of him. Others overcompensated, speaking too loudly or too slowly like he was a child. A few, thankfully, treated him normally. Each interaction was exhausting in its own way, and Leah could see the tension building in Ethan's shoulders as the night wore on. "Need a break?" she asked quietly during a lull. "Yes, please." They found a quiet corner behind a large floral arrangement, hidden from the main crowd. Ethan let out a long breath, his shoulders sagging. "You okay?" Leah asked. "Just tired. I forgot how draining these events are. All the performing, the small talk, the careful navigation of people's discomfort." "You're doing great. They all seem impressed that you're here. They're impressed that I'm still alive and functioning. The bar is pretty low when people expect you to give up." He looked up at her. "Thank you for being here. This would be impossible alone. We made a deal. I keep my promises." "It's more than that though, isn't it? This stopped being just about our arrangement a while ago." Leah's heart skipped. "What do you mean?" "I mean I care about you. Really care about you. Not because you help me navigate social events or because you're kind to me. Because you're you. Because when you laugh at my terrible jokes I feel like I matter. Because when you text me good morning my whole day gets brighter. Because somewhere in the last month, you became the most important person in my life." The ballroom noise faded away. Leah stared at Ethan, her pulse racing. "Ethan, we agreed to keep this professional." "I know. And if that's all you want, I'll respect that. But I needed you to know the truth. I'm falling for you, Leah. Maybe I already have. And I understand if that scares you or complicates things or makes you want to walk away. But I can't pretend anymore that this is just a business arrangement. Before Leah could respond, a woman's voice cut through the moment. Ethan? Ethan Cross? Is that really you? They both turned. A blonde woman in a silver dress stood a few feet away, her face carefully made up, her expression a mixture of surprise and something calculated. She was beautiful in that polished, expensive way that made Leah feel underdressed despite her fancy gown. Ethan went rigid. Brittany. The woman who'd abandoned him at his lowest moment smiled. I heard you might be here tonight, but I didn't believe it. You look wonderful. Really. I'm so glad you're doing better. What are you doing here? Ethan's voice was flat, controlled. I'm with the Davidson Group now. We're sponsoring one of the education programs. I had no idea it was your event until I saw the program. Brittany's gaze slid to Leah, assessing and dismissive in one glance. And who's this? This is Leah Richardson. My date. Date. How nice. Brittany's smile didn't reach her eyes. It's good to see you moving on, Ethan. You deserve to be happy. Do I? That's not what you said 2 years ago. Color rose in Brittany's cheeks. I was young. Scared. I handled things poorly, I know that now. But I've grown since then. Changed. I've been wanting to reach out to apologize properly, but I didn't know if you'd want to hear from me. I wouldn't. Ethan, please. Can we talk? Just for a few minutes? I owe you an explanation, a real one, not the cowardly exit I gave you before. Leah felt Ethan's hand find hers, gripping tight. There's nothing to talk about. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. For closure, if nothing else. Leah squeezed Ethan's hand. It's okay. I'll wait here. I don't want to leave you. I'll be fine. Go. Get your closure. Reluctantly, Ethan let go of her hand and followed Brittany to an even more secluded corner. Leah watched them go, her chest tight with an emotion she didn't want to examine too closely. Jealousy? Fear? Both? She tried not to stare as they talked, but it was impossible not to notice Brittany's body language. The way she leaned in close, touched Ethan's shoulder, smiled that practiced smile. The way she was performing remorse while her eyes calculated something else entirely. First time at one of these? A voice beside her made Leah jump. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a warm smile stood nearby. Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. I'm Patricia Wu. I work with Ethan's company on the education initiatives. Leah Richardson. And yes, first time. Is it always this intense? Patricia laughed. Usually more so. You're handling it well. And it's good to see Ethan here. He's been missed. He's been through a lot. We all have. The question is whether we let it break us or make us stronger. Ethan seems to be choosing stronger, finally. I suspect you have something to do with that. Before Leah could respond, Ethan returned, his face carefully neutral but his hands clenched tight on his wheelchair armrests. Brittany was nowhere to be seen. Everything okay? Leah asked. Fine. She wanted to apologize, to explain. I listened. That's all. But Leah could see it wasn't all. Could see the turmoil in his eyes, the tension in his jaw. Whatever Brittany had said, it had shaken him. The rest of the gala passed in a blur. Dinner was served, speeches were made, and donations were pledged. Ethan gave a brief address about the importance of education and equal access to technology, and Leah watched the room hang on his every word. This was his world, his element, and despite everything he'd lost, he still commanded respect and attention. By the time they left, it was past midnight. They rode back to Ethan's house in silence, both exhausted, both processing the weight of the evening. Come inside, Ethan said when they arrived. Please. I don't want tonight to end like this, with all this tension between us. Leah followed him into the house. Gerald had left for the night, and the place was quiet, lit only by soft accent lighting. They went to the living room and Ethan transferred to the couch, patting the space beside him. What did she say? Leah asked, sitting down. Brittany. What did she want? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. She apologized. Said she panicked after the accident, couldn't handle seeing me like that, made a mistake leaving. She claimed she spent the last 2 years regretting it, going to therapy, working on herself. She wants another chance. Leah's stomach dropped. What did you say? I told her no. Absolutely not. That ship didn't just sail, it sank 2 years ago and I've moved on. He turned to face her fully. But seeing her again, hearing her apologize, it brought everything back. The pain, the abandonment, the feeling of being disposable. And it made me realize something. What? I'm terrified of being abandoned again. By anyone but especially by you. What I said earlier about falling for you, that's real. But the thought of letting you all the way in, of being vulnerable enough to truly love you and then losing you too? That scares me more than anything. Leah took his hand. I'm scared too. Of getting too close, of confusing gratitude for love, of being your caretaker instead of your partner. Of making promises I can't keep. But Ethan, you have to know I'm not going anywhere. Not because of our arrangement, not because you're paying my debts. Because I care about you. Really care about you. Even though I'm broken? You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference. He pulled her closer until their foreheads touched. I don't know how to do this. How to let someone in again. How to trust that they'll stay. We learn together. One day at a time. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people figuring it out as they go. Can I kiss you? The question was barely a whisper. Yes. He kissed her gently, carefully, like she was something precious that might break. Leah kissed him back, pouring all her reassurance and affection and hope into that single connection. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ethan's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm falling for you too, Leah admitted. I tried not to. I told myself it was too complicated, too risky, too soon. But I can't help it. You make me want to believe in good things again. Stay tonight, Ethan said. Not for anything except this. Being close. Not being alone. They spent the night on the couch, talking and dozing and simply existing in the same space. Leah told him about her father's death, about how she'd had to grow up overnight and take care of everyone. Ethan told her about his accident, about the months of pain and fear and learning to navigate a world that wasn't designed for wheelchairs. As dawn broke through the windows, Leah realized something had shifted between them. The walls were down. The pretense was gone. Whatever they were building was real now, messy and complicated and terrifying, but real. I should go home, she said reluctantly. I worked the evening shift today. Okay. But Leah? Yeah. Thank you. For staying last night. For staying all the nights before. For not running away. Thank you for giving me a reason to stay. She drove home in her fancy dress, still wearing yesterday's makeup, feeling like she'd crossed some invisible threshold she could never uncross. And despite all her fears, despite all the logical reasons this was a bad idea, Leah found herself smiling. Because for the first time in a very long time, she wasn't just surviving. She was living. And that made all the risk worthwhile. Tasha showed up at Leah's apartment unannounced on a Saturday morning, her expression serious and worried. Leah, still in her pajamas and nursing her second cup of coffee, felt her stomach drop when she saw her sister's face. We need to talk, Tasha said, pushing past her into the apartment. About this Ethan guy. Good morning to you too. Want some coffee? I'm serious, Leah. Mom told me about the medical bills being paid. About my tuition being covered. About how you've been spending all your free time with some rich dude in a wheelchair. What's going on? Leah sat down on the couch, gesturing for Tasha to join her. At 19, her sister looked so much like their father it sometimes hurt to look at her. Same warm brown eyes, same determined set to her jaw, same fierce protectiveness that had Leah both grateful and exasperated. His name is Ethan Cross. He's a friend who offered to help with our financial situation. That's all. That's all? Leah, nobody just pays off tens of thousands of dollars in debt for a friend. What did you agree to? What does he want from you? It's not like that. Then what is it like? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're being taken advantage of by some guy who has money and thinks he can buy whatever he wants. Leah felt anger flash through her. You don't know him. You don't know anything about the situation. Then explain it to me. Make me understand why my sister, who's been working herself to exhaustion for years, suddenly has all her problems solved by a man she met a month ago. So Leah explained. About Monica's setup, about Ethan's isolation and loneliness, about their arrangement and the gala and how their relationship had evolved into something neither of them planned. She left out the kiss, the confession, the complicated feelings that kept her up at night. Some things were too new, too fragile to share yet. Tasha listened, her expression shifting from anger to concern to something that looked like understanding. When Leah finished, she was quiet for a long moment. You care about him, she said finally. Like really care about him. Yes. And he cares about you? I think so. I hope so. But you're scared. Terrified, Leah admitted. What if I'm just a project to him? What if 6 months from now he decides he's done playing house with the poor girl and moves on? What if I've let myself care too much about someone who's going to leave? Tasha reached over and took her hand. Or what if he's genuine? What if this is real and good and exactly what you both need? Leah, you've spent your whole adult life taking care of everyone else. Mom, me, your patients. Maybe it's okay to let someone take care of you for once. I don't want to be taken care of. I want to be equal partners. Then be equal partners. But stop punishing yourself for accepting help. There's no nobility in drowning alone. They talked for another hour, and by the time Tasha left, Leah felt lighter somehow. Having her sister's blessing mattered more than she'd realized. But Tasha's concerns weren't entirely unfounded. What did Ethan really want from this relationship? And was Leah prepared for whatever came next? Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Can you come over? Something's happened. Leah drove to his house, worry gnawing at her stomach. When she arrived, she found Ethan in his office, staring at his laptop with an expression that looked like barely controlled rage. What's wrong? He turned the screen toward her. A tabloid website blazed with photos from the gala. Leah and Ethan on the red carpet, her hand on his shoulder as they posed. The headline read, "Tech billionaire emerges from hiding with mysterious beauty. Is love the cure for tragedy?" "I'm so sorry," Ethan said. "I thought we'd avoided most of the press. I didn't expect them to dig into your life." Leah scrolled through the article. They'd identified her as a nurse at City General Hospital, speculated about their relationship, dug up information about her family's financial struggles and implied that she was a gold digger targeting a vulnerable man. "This is horrible," she breathed. "It's worse. Look at the comments." She shouldn't have looked. The comments were vicious. People calling her a scam artist, a leech, accusing her of taking advantage of a disabled man. Others defended her, calling the first group ableist for assuming Ethan couldn't make his own choices. The whole thing was a mess of opinions from people who knew nothing about them. "I'll have my lawyers send cease and desist letters," Ethan said. "We can try to get the worst of it taken down. That'll just make it worse. Make us look guilty of something." Leah set her phone down, trying to calm her racing heart. "I need to call the hospital. Make sure this doesn't affect my job. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you better. This isn't your fault." This is what happens when people think they're entitled to opinions about strangers' lives. But as she called her supervisor and assured her that the relationship was professional and wouldn't affect her work, Leah couldn't shake the feeling that everything was spiraling out of control. She'd wanted to keep her life private, separate from Ethan's world. Now the two were colliding in the worst possible way. Things got worse later that week when Ethan's brother, Kyle, showed up at his house unannounced. Leah was there helping Ethan prepare for a board meeting when Gerald showed Kyle into the office. Kyle Cross looked like an older, harder version of Ethan. Same features, but where Ethan's face held warmth and vulnerability, Kyle's held cold calculation. He wore an expensive suit and an expression that made Leah immediately dislike him. "Ethan," Kyle said, barely glancing at Leah. "We need to talk. About the company. Whatever you have to say, you can say in front of Leah." Kyle's gaze flicked over her dismissively. "This is family business. She stays." Kyle sighed, clearly annoyed, but continued anyway. "The board is concerned. Dad's concerned. You've been running the company from home for 2 years, barely making appearances, delegating everything. Some members think it's time for new leadership. Someone who can be there in person, who can handle the demands of the position." "Someone like you?" Ethan's voice was ice. "I'm just delivering the message. But yes, I've been asked to consider taking over as CEO. Of course, you'd retain majority ownership. This is about operations, not ownership. This is about you wanting control of something you didn't build." The answer is no. Be reasonable, Ethan. You can't run a major tech company from your living room forever. You're not well enough. I'm paralyzed, not incompetent. There's a difference. The board doesn't see it that way. Neither does Dad. They want someone strong at the helm. Leah felt her hands clench into fists. The casual cruelty of Kyle's words, the implication that Ethan's disability made him weak, was infuriating. She was about to speak when Ethan held up a hand, stopping her. "Tell the board I'll be at the next meeting. In person. And tell Dad that if he has concerns about my leadership, he can grow a spine and say them to my face instead of sending his other son to do his dirty work." Kyle's expression hardened. "You're making a mistake. Pride will cost you everything." "No. Pride is the only thing that's kept me from giving up entirely. Now get out of my house." After Kyle left, Ethan sat in tense silence, his jaw tight, his hands gripping his wheelchair armrests hard enough to turn his knuckles white. "Hey," Leah said gently, kneeling beside his chair. "You okay? I built that company from nothing. Worked 70-hour weeks, sacrificed everything to make it successful. And now because I can't walk, they think I'm not capable anymore. Like my brain stopped working when my legs did. They're wrong. You know that. Do I? Maybe they're right. Maybe I can't do this anymore. Stop. Right now. You're one of the smartest people I know. Your disability doesn't change that. If the board can't see it, that's their failure, not yours. Ethan looked up at her, his eyes red. I don't know if I have the energy to fight this. To prove myself all over again to people who are supposed to trust me. Then we fight it together. You're not alone in this anymore. Over the next 2 weeks they prepared. Leah helped Ethan organize his presentation for the board, highlighting every success his leadership had achieved in the last 2 years. Revenue was up 20%. Employee satisfaction scores were the highest they'd ever been. The education initiative had expanded to 12 new states. The company was thriving under his direction, regardless of where he physically sat. They practiced his speech until Ethan could deliver it in his sleep. Leah drilled him on potential questions, helped him anticipate objections, reminded him of his worth when doubt crept in. The day of the board meeting, Leah went with him. She waited outside the conference room while he faced his doubters, pacing the hallway and checking her phone every 30 seconds like that would make time move faster. 2 hours later, Ethan emerged. His face was exhausted but triumphant. They voted to keep me on as CEO. Unanimously after I reminded them that the company's success speaks for itself. Kyle was furious. Dad didn't even show up, which probably says more than any argument could have. Leah threw her arms around him, not caring that they were in a professional building, not caring who might see. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. Literally. You gave me the confidence to fight back. They went out for dinner to celebrate, a quiet restaurant where they could talk without being overheard. Ethan was lighter than Leah had seen him in weeks. The weight of the board's challenge finally lifted. Can I ask you something? He said over dessert. Of course. What Tasha said to you. About being taken advantage of. Does that worry you? That people will see our relationship that way? Leah considered her answer carefully. Sometimes. The tabloid article made it real, made me see how others might interpret what we have. But then I remember that we know the truth. Our relationship, whatever it becomes, is built on genuine care and respect. Other people's opinions don't change that. Even if those opinions affect your work, your reputation. My reputation is built on how I treat my patients, not who I date. Anyone who would judge me based on tabloid gossip isn't worth worrying about. Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. You're remarkable. You know that. I'm practical. There's a difference. No. You're remarkable. And I'm very lucky you decided to stay that first night. They finished dinner and drove back to Ethan's house. It had become routine now, Leah spending most of her free time there. Her apartment felt emptier every time she went home, like she was visiting a place she used to live rather than returning to her actual home. Stay tonight, Ethan said as they pulled into his driveway. I don't want to be alone after today. Okay. They spent the evening on the couch, watching a movie neither of them paid attention to. Leah was acutely aware of Ethan's arm around her shoulders, the warmth of his body beside hers, the comfortable silence that had become their default language. Somewhere around midnight, Ethan spoke. I talked to my therapist yesterday. About us. About my fears. What did she say? That I'm using my past trauma as an excuse not to fully invest in something good. That I keep waiting for you to leave because expecting abandonment feels safer than risking hope. And she's right. I've been holding back, keeping part of myself protected because I'm terrified. I'm terrified too, Leah admitted. Of getting too close, of being hurt, of losing myself and taking care of you. But being scared doesn't mean we're wrong. It just means we're being brave. My therapist said something else too. She said that if I keep treating our relationship like it's temporary, it will be. That I need to decide if I'm all in or all out, because this halfway commitment isn't fair to either of us. Leah turned to face him fully. What do you want? I want all in. I want to stop pretending this is just an arrangement. I want to call you my girlfriend and mean it. I want to build something real that lasts beyond 6 months. But only if that's what you want too. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. I want that. I want all of it. But Ethan, we need to be realistic. Your family hates me. The tabloids think I'm using you. We're from completely different worlds. I don't care about any of that. Do you? I care about you getting hurt. I care about making sure this is real and not just two lonely people clinging to each other because it's easier than being alone. Is that what you think this is? No, Leah said honestly. I think this is real. Messy and complicated and scary but real. And I want to see where it goes. Ethan pulled her closer, kissing her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. Then we're officially together. No more halfway. No more holding back. No more holding back, Leah agreed. They fell asleep on the couch again, wrapped around each other, and for the first time since this whole thing started, Leah let herself believe it might actually work. 3 months into their official relationship, Leah and Ethan had settled into a comfortable rhythm. She'd effectively moved into his house, keeping her apartment mostly for appearances and the occasional night when work ran late. They attended events together, worked side by side on the education initiative, and spent quiet evenings cooking dinner and watching terrible reality TV. It felt normal. Good. Like they were building something that could last. Then Brittany came back. Leah was at the hospital when Ethan called, his voice tight with tension. She's here. At my house. Gerald let her in before I could stop him. She says she needs to talk to me about something important. Do you want me to come home? No. Stay at work. I'll handle this. I just wanted you to know. But hours later, when Leah got home, she found Ethan in his office, staring at his computer screen with an expression she couldn't read. Brittany was gone, but her presence lingered in the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his mouth. What did she want? Leah asked, setting down her bag. To apologize. Again. More thoroughly this time. She brought photos from our relationship before the accident, said she's been in therapy working through why she ran. She claims she's changed, grown, learned to handle difficult situations better. Something cold settled in Leah's stomach. And she asked if I could forgive her. Not to get back together, she said. Just for closure. For her own healing process. What did you say? Ethan finally looked at her. I said I'd think about it. That forgiveness is complicated and I need time to process. That's fair. But it didn't feel fair. It felt like a door opening that Leah had thought was permanently closed. She wanted to be understanding, supportive, the bigger person. Instead, she felt threatened and insecure and irrationally angry. Over the next week, Brittany called twice. She sent flowers with a note about how proud she was of Ethan for not giving up. She showed up at a company event and made polite conversation with Leah while her eyes tracked Ethan's every movement. She wants you back, Leah said one night after Brittany had cornered them at a charity auction. You realize that, right? This isn't about closure. It's about getting another chance. I know what it looks like, Ethan said carefully. But I told her I'm with you. That I'm happy. She said she respects that. And you believe her? I don't know what I believe. Brittany hurt me deeply. But she was also the woman I planned to marry. We had years together before the accident. That history doesn't just disappear. Leah felt like she'd been slapped. Are you seriously considering this? Considering her? I'm not considering anything. I'm just trying to process complicated feelings about someone who was important to me. She left you. When you needed her most, she walked away. Now she's back because you're successful again, because you've proven you're still worth something to the world. Don't you see that? Or maybe she's back because she genuinely regrets her choice and wants to make amends. People can change, Leah. Isn't that what you're always saying about your patients? That they deserve second chances. My patients didn't abandon someone they claimed to love when things got hard. They stared at each other across his living room, and Leah realized they were having their first real fight. The kind where actual hurt feelings and resentment bubbled up, where the careful politeness they usually maintained cracked under pressure. I'm not getting back together with her, Ethan said finally. But I think I need to at least hear her out properly. Give her a chance to fully apologize. Maybe have coffee or dinner where we can talk through what happened. Fine. Do whatever you need to do. Don't be like that. Like what? Understanding? Supportive? Sorry, but I'm having trouble being supportive of you having dinner with your ex-fiancée who wants you back. She doesn't want me back. She just wants closure. Keep telling yourself that. Leah grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Ethan called after her, but she didn't stop. She drove to her apartment, the one she'd barely stayed in for months, and collapsed on her bed, angry tears streaming down her face. She was being irrational. She knew that. Ethan had every right to seek closure with someone from his past. But the fear gnawing at her gut wouldn't quiet down. The fear that said Brittany was everything Leah wasn't. Polished, educated in the same circles, familiar with Ethan's world in ways Leah never would be. What if he realized he'd been settling? What if the history they shared was stronger than the connection he and Leah had built? Her phone buzzed with texts from Ethan. Apologies, reassurances, pleas to come back so they could talk. Leah ignored them all and cried herself to sleep. The next day, she went to work and threw herself into patient care with an intensity that made her coworkers ask if she was okay. She wasn't okay. She was hurt and scared and questioning everything about her relationship with Ethan. That evening, Ethan showed up at the hospital during her break. He waited in the cafeteria, and when Leah saw him sitting there in his wheelchair, looking exhausted and worried, her anger deflated. "I'm sorry," he said when she sat down across from him. "You're right. I wasn't thinking about how my seeing Brittany would affect you. I was only thinking about my own need for closure. I'm sorry too. For running away instead of talking it through. I canceled the dinner. I told Brittany that while I appreciate her apology, I don't think meeting up is a good idea. That I've moved on and I'm happy, and rehashing the past won't change anything." Relief flooded through Leah. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. Because you're more important than closure with someone who hurt me. You're my present and my future. Brittany is my past, and that's where she needs to stay." "What did she say?" "She was disappointed. Said she hoped we could be friends. I told her that wasn't possible right now, maybe not ever, and she needed to respect that." Leah reached across the table and took his hand. "Thank you. I mean it, Leah. You're it for me. I'm not interested in anyone else. Not Brittany, not anyone. Just you." They reconciled, but the incident left a mark. Leah couldn't shake the feeling that she was competing with a ghost, with the memory of who Ethan used to be before the accident. And despite Ethan's reassurances, she caught him sometimes looking distant, thoughtful, like he was working through something he couldn't quite articulate. 2 weeks later, Brittany called Ethan one more time. Leah was there when he answered, putting it on speaker so there would be no secrets between them. "I know you said you didn't want to meet," Brittany's voice came through, smooth and persuasive. "But I'm leaving the country for a job opportunity in London. I'll be gone for at least 2 years. Before I go, I really need to see you one more time. Just to say goodbye properly." Ethan looked at Leah, a question in his eyes. She wanted to say no. Wanted to demand he hang up and block Brittany's number. But she also knew that if she did that, if she tried to control who he could talk to, their relationship would become something unhealthy. "Okay," Ethan said. "One dinner. Public place. Leah comes with me." There was a pause. "I was hoping we could talk alone. Those are my terms. Take them or leave them." "Fine. Tomorrow night? Romano's at 7? We'll be there." After he hung up, Leah felt sick. This is a mistake. Probably. But if I don't do this, if I don't let her say what she needs to say, it's going to hang over us forever. Better to face it now and be done with it. The next evening they arrived at Romano's, the same restaurant where Leah and Ethan had their first blind date. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Brittany was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking stunning in a cream-colored dress. "Ethan," she said warmly, then with barely concealed coldness, "Leah?" They sat down and the awkwardness was immediate. Brittany kept trying to talk to Ethan about old memories, inside jokes, places they'd traveled together. Leah sat there feeling like an intruder in a conversation she was supposed to be part of. "I miss us," Brittany said eventually, her eyes locked on Ethan. "I miss who we were together. The plans we had. The life we were building." "That life doesn't exist anymore," Ethan said firmly. "I'm different now. You're different. We can't go back. But we could go forward. We could build something new together, something better. Ethan, I know I hurt you. I know I failed you when you needed me most. But I've spent 2 years regretting it, wishing I could take it back. Give me another chance. Please." The vulnerability in her voice was real. Leah could hear it. This wasn't just manipulation. Brittany genuinely believed she deserved another chance. "No," Ethan said quietly. "I'm with Leah. I'm happy with Leah. What we had is over, Brittany. It ended the day you left my hospital room." "You're settling," Brittany said, and now there was an edge to her voice. "You're with her because she was there when you were lonely, because she's safe and comfortable. But is that really what you want? Someone who pities you?" "Stop," Ethan's voice was ice. "Don't talk about Leah like that. I'm just saying what everyone else is thinking. Look at you two. You're from completely different worlds. She works as a nurse, you run a billion-dollar company. She has no idea how to navigate your life, your responsibilities. How long before you realize you need someone who can actually keep up?" Leah stood up, her hands shaking. "I think we're done here." "Leah, wait," Ethan started, but she was already walking away. She made it outside before the tears came. The valet brought her car and she drove aimlessly, Brittany's words echoing in her head. "You're settling. She pities you. Different worlds. How long before you realize? All the insecurities she'd been trying to ignore came flooding back. Maybe Brittany was right. Maybe Ethan did deserve someone from his world, someone polished and educated and comfortable in rooms where Leah still felt like an imposter. Her phone rang. Ethan. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. Finally she answered. Where are you? His voice was tight with worry. Driving. Pull over. Please. We need to talk. I don't know what there is to say. She's right, isn't she? We're from different worlds. I'm a nurse who can barely afford rent, you're a billionaire Texio. What are we even doing? We're building a life together. That's what we're doing. Brittany is wrong. About everything. You don't pity me, you see me. You challenge me and support me and make me want to be better. She never did that. She loved the idea of me, the successful tech guy who could give her a fancy life. You love me for who I actually am. How do you know that? How do you know I'm not just here because you saved me from drowning in debt? Because I know you. I know your heart. And I know that what we have is real. Please come back. Let's talk this through properly. Leah pulled into a parking lot and sat there, crying while Ethan stayed on the phone with her. Not pushing, not demanding, just being present. I'm scared, she finally admitted. I'm scared that 6 months from now, a year from now, you're going to wake up and realize you made a mistake. That you're going to resent me for not being enough. And I'm scared that you're going to realize taking care of me is too much work and you're going to leave like everyone else did. We're both scared, Leah. But being scared doesn't mean we're wrong for each other. It just means we're being honest about how much we have to lose. What do we do now? You come home. We forget about Brittany and her toxic opinions. And we keep building what we have, one day at a time. Leah drove back to Ethan's house. He was waiting by the door, and when she got out of the car, he rolled toward her and pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry, she said into his shoulder. For running. For doubting us. I'm sorry for putting you in that situation. I should have met her alone or not at all. Bringing you was cruel, even if I didn't mean it to be. They went inside and talked for hours. About their fears, their insecurities, the ways they needed to support each other better. It was raw and painful and necessary. And by the time the sun came up, Leah felt something shift. The foundation they'd built felt stronger somehow, tested by fire and proven solid. Brittany had tried to drive a wedge between them and failed. That had to mean something. I love you, Ethan said as they lay in his bed, exhausted from talking. I should have said it sooner. I love you, Leah Richardson. Not because you stayed when others left. Not because you're convenient or safe. Because you're you. Because you make me laugh and challenge my assumptions and remind me that I'm more than my disability or my bank account. Because being with you feels like coming home. Leah's heart felt too full for her chest. I love you too. Even when I'm scared. Even when I doubt. I love you. They kissed, soft and slow, sealing the promise between them. And for the first time since Brittany had reappeared, Leah felt like they were going to be okay. But Leah was wrong. Everything fell apart 2 weeks later in the most unexpected way. Ethan had been quiet for days, withdrawn in a way that made Leah nervous. He said it was work stress, an upcoming product launch that wasn't going smoothly. She believed him because she wanted to, because the alternative was too scary to consider. Then she came home early from a shift and found Ethan in his office, staring at his phone with tears streaming down his face. What's wrong? She rushed to him, kneeling beside his wheelchair. Ethan, what happened? He handed her his phone without speaking. On the screen was a series of text messages. From Brittany. I'm sorry to do this over text, but you wouldn't return my calls. I need you to know the truth. About the accident. About why I really left. Leah scrolled down, her stomach sinking with each line. Your brother Kyle paid me. After the accident, when you were still in the hospital, he offered me $500,000 to leave you. He said you'd be too focused on recovery to run the company properly, that someone needed to take over, and having a fiancé and family obligations would complicate things. He wanted you isolated, vulnerable, desperate enough to hand over control. I took the money. I'm not proud of it, but I took it. And I left you when you needed me most because I was greedy and stupid and cruel. But seeing you with Leah, seeing you happy, made me realize what I gave up. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know the truth before I left the country. Your brother manipulated both of us. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Leah looked up at Ethan. His face was devastated, broken in a way she'd never seen before. Kyle paid her to leave me, he said, his voice hollow. My own brother orchestrated my abandonment so he could take over my company. And Brittany took the money and ran. Everyone I trusted, everyone I thought cared about me, they all just saw me as something to use. Not everyone, Leah said firmly. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Aren't you? How do I know you're not just waiting for a better offer? How do I know 6 months from now you won't decide I'm too much trouble and walk away too? Because I love you. Because I've proven over and over that I'm not them. Have you? Ethan pulled away from her. Or have you just been really good at playing the part of the devoted girlfriend? Maybe this whole thing has been an act. Maybe you're just better at hiding your true motivations than Brittany was. Leah felt like she'd been punched. You don't mean that. Don't I? Everyone leaves, Leah. Everyone. My family, my friends, my fiancé. Why would you be any different? Because I'm not them. I'm not using you. I'm not waiting for a payout or a reason to run. I'm here because I choose to be, because being with you makes me happy. You're here because I'm paying your mother's medical bills and your sister's tuition. Take that away and what's left? How dare you? Leah stood up, her hands shaking. How dare you reduce what we have to a transaction? I stayed that first night before there was any money involved. I came back for coffee because I wanted to see you again. I fell in love with you despite the complications, not because of what you could give me. Did you? Or did you fall in love with financial security and convince yourself it was me? You're being cruel because you're hurt. I understand that. But I won't stand here and let you question my integrity because your brother and your ex are terrible people. Ethan's laugh was bitter. Maybe I'm the terrible person. Maybe I'm so desperate for connection that I'll pay anyone to pretend to care. Maybe our whole relationship has been me buying companionship and you providing it like any good employee. Stop it. Right now. What? Because the truth hurts? Because you don't like being reminded that our relationship started as a business arrangement. It started that way, Leah said, fighting back tears. But it became something real. Something beautiful. Don't let your pain destroy that. It was never real. I see that now. You were hired help who was good at her job. That's all. The words hit her like physical blows. Leah stared at him, this man she loved, and saw only a stranger. Someone so consumed by hurt that he was lashing out at the one person who'd stood by him. Fine, she said quietly. If that's what you believe, then there's nothing more to say. I'll pack my things and leave. You can go back to being alone, since that's clearly what you want. Leah, wait, Ethan's voice cracked and she heard the desperation underneath the anger. But she couldn't stay. Couldn't stand there and be accused of being just like everyone who'd hurt him. She went to the bedroom they'd been sharing and threw her clothes into bags. Ethan followed, calling her name, apologizing, begging her not to leave. But Leah couldn't hear him over the roaring in her ears, the pain of his words echoing in her head. Please, he said, and now he was crying openly. Please don't go. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just hurt and scared and I'm taking it out on you because you're safe. Because I know you'll forgive me. Please forgive me. Leah turned to face him, her own tears streaming down her face. I can't be your punching bag, Ethan. I can't be the person you hurt when you're in pain just because you know I'll take it. That's not love. That's not a relationship. That's abuse. I know. You're right. I'm sorry. Please just stay. We can work through this. How? How do we work through you fundamentally not trusting me? Not believing that I'm here for the right reasons. I do trust you. I do believe in us. I was just lashing out because finding out about Kyle and Brittany destroyed me. But I know you're different. I know what we have is real. Do you? Because 5 minutes ago you said it was all fake. That I'm just hired help. You can't take that back, Ethan. You can't unsay words like that. She grabbed her bags and headed for the door. Ethan followed, desperate, broken. Leah, please. I love you. Don't leave me. Everyone leaves me. Please don't be another person who leaves. You're pushing me away and then begging me to stay. You can't have it both ways. She stopped at the door, turning back one more time. I love you. I really do. But I can't be with someone who doesn't trust me. Who thinks so little of me that he'd accuse me of using him. Fix yourself, Ethan. Figure out what you actually want. And maybe, if you decide it's me, if you decide to truly believe in us, we can try again. But right now, I need space. She walked out, and this time she didn't look back. The drive to her apartment was a blur of tears and pain. Leah barely remembered parking, barely remembered climbing the stairs to her door. Rachel was inside, and she took one look at Leah's face and pulled her into a hug. What happened? Leah told her everything. About Brittany's confession, about Kyle's betrayal, about Ethan's accusations and the terrible things he'd said. Rachel listened, her expression growing angrier with each detail. He's an idiot, she said when Leah finished. He's hurt and broken and he took it out on you because he knew you'd be there to absorb it. That's not okay. I know. But I also know he's in pain. His brother orchestrated his abandonment. His ex-fiancée took money to leave him. Everyone he trusted betrayed him. How is he supposed to believe in anyone after that? By recognizing that you're not them. By seeing all the times you've proven yourself. By trusting the evidence instead of giving in to fear. Leah collapsed on her old couch, the one that was lumpy and worn but familiar. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe 6 months wasn't enough time to build the foundation we needed. Or maybe he needs to work through his trauma before he can be in a healthy relationship with anyone. Her phone rang. Ethan. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. Finally she turned it off. She needed space. Needed time to think without his voice in her ear, his apologies clouding her judgment. What they had was real. She knew that. But was it strong enough to survive this? Strong enough to overcome his fundamental inability to trust? Leah didn't know. And that terrified her more than anything. 4 days passed. 4 days of Leah throwing herself into work, of avoiding her phone, of pretending her heart wasn't breaking. Monica came by with wine and comfort. Tasha called daily with encouragement and a few choice words about what she'd like to say to Ethan. Rachel hovered like a protective mother hen, making sure Leah ate and slept and didn't completely fall apart. But Leah was falling apart anyway. Because despite everything, despite the hurt and the accusations and the fundamental breakdown of trust, she still loved him. Still thought about him constantly. Still reached for her phone to text him about something funny or interesting before remembering they weren't talking. On the 5th day, Gerald showed up at her apartment. "Miss Richardson," he said when she opened the door. "I hope I'm not intruding. May I come in?" Leah let him in, curious despite herself. Gerald looked tired, worried in a way she'd never seen him before. "He's not well," Gerald said without preamble. "Mr. Cross. Since you left he's barely eaten, barely slept. He's not answering calls from the company. He just sits in his office staring at nothing. Why are you telling me this? Because I've worked for Ethan for 8 years. I've seen him at his best and his absolute worst. And I've never seen him as devastated as he is right now. You're the best thing that's ever happened to him, Miss Richardson. What he said to you was unforgivable. But losing you might actually break him. He pushed me away. He accused me of using him, of being just like everyone else who hurt him. How am I supposed to come back from that? I'm not asking you to come back. I'm asking you to listen. To hear what he's been processing since you left. He spent the last 5 days in therapy, working through everything with his counselor. He knows he was wrong. He knows he hurt you. But he's terrified you'll never speak to him again." Leah closed her eyes. "What does he want from me? To apologize. Properly. To explain what was going through his mind, not to excuse it but to help you understand. And then to let you decide if there's any path forward. I need to think about it. Of course. But Miss Richardson? For what it's worth, I've never seen him love anyone the way he loves you. Not even Brittany. What you two have is rare. It would be a shame to let fear destroy it." After Gerald left, Leah sat alone in her apartment for a long time. She thought about everything they'd built together. The quiet mornings drinking coffee. The late nights talking about nothing and everything. The way Ethan looked at her like she was precious and rare. The way he made her laugh even on her worst days. She thought about his face when he'd read Brittany's confession. The devastation, the betrayal, the absolute destruction of his ability to trust anyone. She thought about how scared he must have been in that moment, how isolated and alone. It didn't excuse what he'd said, but it helped her understand it. That evening she texted him. "I'm willing to talk, but not at your house. Somewhere neutral." His response came immediately. "BA's Cafe? Tomorrow at 7? Okay." She barely slept that night, running through every possible conversation in her head. By the time she arrived at the cafe the next evening, her stomach was in knots. Ethan was already there, sitting at their usual corner table. He looked terrible. Exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and a tension in his jaw that spoke of pain barely controlled. But when he saw her walk in, his whole face transformed with relief and hope. "Thank you for coming," he said as she sat down. "I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't." They ordered coffee. Neither of them touched it when it arrived. Finally, Ethan spoke. "I'm not going to make excuses for what I said. It was cruel and unfair and completely wrong. You've never given me any reason to doubt you. You've proven over and over that you're nothing like the people who hurt me. But when I found out about Kyle and Brittany, when I realized that everyone I'd trusted had betrayed me, something broke inside me." He took a shaky breath. "I've been in therapy twice a day since you left. working through my trauma, my abandonment issues, my inability to trust. And my therapist helped me see something I'd been refusing to acknowledge. I've been waiting for you to leave. Expecting it even. Because if I expect it, if I prepare for it, then it won't hurt as much when it happens. But I wasn't leaving, Leah said quietly. I was there. I was staying. I know. And that terrified me more than anything. Because the longer you stayed, the more I had to lose. So when I found out about the betrayal, my brain went into protection mode. It tried to push you away before you could hurt me, tried to prove that I was right to never trust anyone. You succeeded. You pushed me away. I know. And I'm sorry. More sorry than I can possibly express. You deserved better than that. You deserved a partner who trusted you, who believed in what we had, who didn't lash out when he was hurt. Leah wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, needing something to hold on to. What you said hurt me deeply. Not just the words, but the fact that after everything we'd been through, you still saw me as someone who was using you. That you could so easily reduce our relationship to a transaction. I was wrong. Completely, fundamentally wrong. Our relationship stopped being a transaction the moment you sat down at Romano's that first night and chose to stay. Everything since then has been real. Our connection, our love, our partnership. All of it real. How do I know you won't do this again? The next time you're hurt or scared, how do I know you won't push me away and accuse me of being like everyone else? You don't, Ethan said honestly. I can't promise I'll never hurt you again. I'm still learning how to be in a healthy relationship after years of trauma and isolation. But I can promise that I'm working on it. That I'm committed to therapy, to understanding my patterns, to communicating better instead of lashing out. He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. I can promise that I love you. Really truly love you. Not because you stayed when others left. Not because you helped me navigate my disability. But because you're smart and kind and funny and you challenge me to be better. Because you see me as a whole person, not just a collection of problems to solve. Because being with you feels like the best version of myself. Tears were streaming down Leah's face. I love you too. Even now, even after everything, I love you. But Ethan, I can't be your emotional punching bag. I can't be the person you hurt when you're in pain. I know. And I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be better. That I can be the partner you deserve. But only if you want to give me that chance. If you don't, if you need to walk away for your own well-being, I'll understand. I'll support that decision even though it will destroy me. Leah looked at him across the table. At the man who'd become her best friend, her partner, her love. The man who'd made terrible mistakes but was genuinely trying to fix them. The man who was broken but healing, who was scared but brave enough to admit it. I need conditions, she said finally. If we're going to try again, we need boundaries. Anything. Name them. First, you continue therapy. Regularly. Not just when things are bad, but ongoing work to process your trauma and learn healthier coping mechanisms. Agreed. I've already committed to twice weekly sessions for the next 6 months. Second, when you're hurting or scared or feeling insecure, you tell me. You don't lash out, you don't push me away. You communicate what you're feeling and we work through it together. Agreed. Though I need you to be patient with me while I learn how to do that. It's not natural for me to be vulnerable. I will be. But you have to actually try. I will. I promise. Third, we rebuild trust slowly. We don't rush back into where we were. We take time to reconnect, to remember why we worked together, to establish a healthier foundation. However long it takes. I'll wait as long as you need. Leah took a deep breath. And finally, you believe me when I say I love you. You trust that I'm here because I choose to be, not because of money or obligation. You have to actually believe in us, Ethan. Because if you can't, if you're always going to doubt my motivations, then we'll never work. I believe in us, Ethan said, and his voice was strong, certain. I believe in you. I believe that what we have is real and worth fighting for. And I'm going to spend every day proving to you that your trust isn't misplaced. Leah finally reached across the table and took his hand. The contact was electric, familiar, like coming home after a long journey. Okay, we'll try again. Slowly. Carefully. But we try. Relief and joy flooded Ethan's face. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. Thank you. For not giving up on me. For giving me another chance. I won't waste it. They talked for 3 more hours, working through everything that had happened, discussing boundaries and expectations and how to handle difficult moments better. It was exhausting and emotional and necessary. When they finally left the cafe, Ethan asked, "Can I drive you home?" "To my apartment." "Not yours." "Not yet." "Of course." In the car, as the driver navigated through evening traffic, Ethan turned to her. I almost forgot. I took care of something. Kyle is no longer part of the company. The board voted to remove him after I presented evidence of his manipulation. He's also facing legal consequences for his actions. And I've cut contact with my father, who apparently knew about Kyle's payment to Brittany and said nothing. How do you feel about that? Lighter. Like I finally cut out the toxic parts of my life that were holding me back. It's just me and Gerald now. And hopefully you when you're ready. I'm ready, Leah said. To try. To rebuild. To see where this goes. He smiled, that real smile she'd fallen in love with. One day at a time? One day at a time. Over the next few weeks, they dated like they were starting fresh. Coffee dates, dinners at quiet restaurants, long walks where Ethan used his chair and Leah walked beside him. They talked about everything. Childhood memories, dreams for the future, fears and insecurities they'd never fully shared before. It felt different than before. More intentional. Like they were building something with stronger materials this time, with better plans, with a clearer vision of what they wanted to create. Leah still kept her apartment. Still maintained some independence. But slowly, carefully, she started spending more nights at Ethan's house. Started leaving clothes in his closet, toiletries in his bathroom, pieces of herself integrated into his space. And Ethan, true to his word, worked on himself. He communicated better. When he was having a bad day, he told her instead of withdrawing. When he felt insecure, he expressed it directly instead of lashing out. It wasn't perfect. He still struggled sometimes. But the effort was genuine, and that made all the difference. One evening, about 6 weeks after their reconciliation, they were cooking dinner together in his enormous kitchen. Ethan was chopping vegetables with impressive knife skills while Leah worked on the sauce. It felt domestic and comfortable and perfectly ordinary. I have something for you, Ethan said, setting down his knife. He rolled over to a drawer and pulled out an envelope. Open it. Inside was a check. A large check made out to Leah for the exact amount he'd paid toward her debts. What is this? She asked, confused. Our original arrangement was 6 months. It's been 5. In 1 month, our contract ends and everything I've paid gets settled as agreed. But I don't want our relationship to have that hanging over it anymore. I want to clear the ledger completely. Ethan, you don't have to do this. I know. But I want to. That money should have always been a gift between people who care about each other, not a payment for services rendered. So take it. Put it in savings, donate it to charity, burn it for all I care. But know that our relationship from this point forward is based purely on love. No contracts, no obligations, no transactions. Just us choosing each other every single day. Leah looked at the check, overwhelmed. This is too much. It's exactly enough. Please, let me do this. She folded the check and tucked it into her pocket, then threw her arms around him. Thank you. Not just for this but for everything. For being honest, for doing the work, for fighting for us. Thank you for giving me the chance to fight. For not giving up when I gave you every reason to. They finished making dinner and ate it while watching the sunset through his floor-to-ceiling windows. The city spread out below them, millions of lights beginning to twinkle as darkness fell. And Leah realized something. She was happy. Really, genuinely happy in a way she hadn't been in years. I love you, she said into the comfortable silence. Ethan turned to her, his eyes soft. I love you too. More than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. Even though I'm just a nurse who doesn't fit into your fancy world? Especially because of that. You keep me grounded. You remind me what actually matters. And for the record, you fit perfectly into my world. Because you are my world. Leah kissed him, slow and sweet and full of promise. And she knew with absolute certainty that they were going to make it. 3 months later, Leah officially moved into Ethan's house. They'd spent weeks planning how to merge their lives, how to make the space feel like theirs instead of just his. They painted the living room a warm sage green. Hung photos of Leah's family alongside Ethan's company awards. Filled the empty spaces with plants and books and little pieces of both their histories. Tasha came to visit and gave her approval. It looks like people actually live here now. Real people with real lives, not a museum exhibit. That was the goal, Leah said, smiling. Her relationship with Ethan had deepened in ways she hadn't thought possible. They'd learned each other's rhythms, each other's needs. Ethan knew that Leah needed quiet time after particularly hard shifts at the hospital. Leah knew that Ethan got frustrated on days when his physical therapy wasn't progressing as fast as he wanted. They supported each other through the hard moments and celebrated the good ones. When Leah received a Nursing Excellence Award from the hospital, Ethan threw her a surprise party with all her co-workers. When Ethan's company launched their new education platform to rave reviews, Leah arranged a private celebration with his small circle of trusted friends. They were building a life together. A real, sustainable, beautiful life. One evening, Ethan asked Leah to accompany him to his physical therapy session. She'd never watched him do therapy before. He'd always said it was private, something he needed to do alone. But he wanted to share this part of his life with her now. The facility was state-of-the-art, with specialized equipment and an incredibly kind therapist named Dr. Harrison. Leah watched as Ethan worked through his exercises, balance work, strength training, attempting to stand with support bars. The effort was evident in every movement. The strain, the determination, the frustration when his body didn't cooperate the way he wanted. But there was also joy when he managed something he couldn't do the week before, pride when Dr. Harrison praised his progress. "You're doing amazing," Leah said afterward as they drove home. "I'll probably never walk normally again," Ethan said matter-of-factly. "Dr. Harrison is honest about that. But I've regained enough function that I can stand for short periods, transfer myself more easily, have more independence. That's a victory. It's a huge victory. I wanted you to see it. The work I'm putting in. Because you inspire me to keep trying, to keep pushing, to not give up." Leah took his hand. "You inspire me too. Every single day." That night they started talking seriously about the future. About what they wanted their lives to look like long-term. "I want to expand the education initiative," Ethan said. "Create a foundation that's separate from the company, something that will outlast me. Provide technology and training to underserved communities all over the country." "That's beautiful. I want you to help me build it. Not just as my partner but as a co-founder. Your perspective as someone who works in healthcare, who understands communities in need, would be invaluable." Leah's heart raced. "You want me to help run a foundation? I want us to run it together. You could reduce your hospital hours if you wanted, focus on something that might have even more impact. Or keep working full-time and be involved part-time. Whatever makes sense for you. Can I think about it?" "Of course. No pressure. I just want you to know that I see you as my equal partner in everything I build moving forward." Over the next few weeks, Leah considered the offer seriously. She loved nursing, loved her patients, loved the direct impact she could make on individual lives. But the foundation would allow her to help on a larger scale, to shape programs that could change thousands of lives instead of dozens. She talked to her supervisor at the hospital, who suggested going part-time. 3 shifts a week instead of 5, leaving time for foundation work while keeping her connected to patient care. It was perfect. Leah accepted Ethan's offer, and they began the work of building the foundation together. They chose a name, the Second Chances Foundation. Because everyone deserved a second chance, whether it was access to education, recovery from setbacks, or rebuilding after loss. The work was exciting and exhausting. They interviewed potential staff, set up programs, traveled to different cities to meet with community leaders and identify needs. Leah discovered she was good at this work, good at seeing what communities needed and figuring out how to deliver it. And working alongside Ethan every day strengthened their relationship in ways she hadn't expected. They were true partners now, building something meaningful together. 6 months after Leah moved in, Ethan asked her to come to the garden one evening. It had become her favorite part of the house, a beautifully landscaped space with flowers and trees and a small pond. She'd spent hours there reading, thinking, finding peace. When she walked outside, she found the garden lit with hundreds of tiny lights strung through the trees. Soft music played from hidden speakers. And Ethan was there, dressed in his best suit, looking nervous and hopeful and absolutely beautiful. "What's all this?" Leah asked, her heart already knowing the answer. "Leah Richardson," Ethan said, his voice shaking slightly. 2 years ago I was ready to give up. On life, on happiness, on the possibility that anything good could happen again. Then you walked into Romano's in a borrowed dress and saw me. Not my wheelchair, not my money, not my disability. Just me." He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a ring, a deep green emerald surrounded by small diamonds, elegant and unique and absolutely perfect. "You taught me that love isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about showing up every day and choosing each other. About being honest even when it's hard. About building something together that's stronger than what either of us could create alone." Tears were already streaming down Leah's face. "I love you more than I knew it was possible to love someone. You're my partner, my best friend, the person who makes every day worth living. Will you marry me? Will you build a life with me for however many years we're given?" "Yes," Leah said, dropping to her knees in front of his wheelchair. "Yes, absolutely yes." I love you so much. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they kissed while the lights twinkled around them and the garden seemed to glow with their happiness. I picked an emerald because of your eyes, Ethan said. They're not quite green, but they have these flecks of it when you're happy. I wanted something unique, something that reminded me of you. It's perfect. Everything is perfect. They sat in the garden for hours, making plans and dreaming about their future. A small wedding, just close friends and family. A honeymoon somewhere quiet and beautiful. A life dedicated to meaningful work and supporting each other and never taking a single day for granted. I want kids, Ethan said tentatively. Someday. If you do. I know my disability complicates things, but there are ways. And I think we'd be good parents. I want that too, Leah said. A family. Little people to love and teach and watch grow up in a house full of kindness and hope. Kindness and hope. I like that. That's exactly what we'll build. The next morning, Leah called her family with the news. Tasha screamed so loud she probably woke her entire dorm. Her mother cried happy tears and said she'd always known Leah would find someone worthy of her love. Monica demanded to be involved in every aspect of wedding planning. At work, her co-workers threw an impromptu celebration. Mrs. Chen, still a patient after all this time, held Leah's hand and said, "You deserve every happiness, sweet girl. You give so much love to others. I'm glad someone is finally giving it back to you." The foundation work continued. They held their first major fundraising gala, raising over $3 million for technology programs in 30 schools across 10 states. Leah gave a speech about second chances and equal access and the power of education to change lives. The audience gave her a standing ovation. Ethan watched from his seat at the head table, his eyes shining with pride and love. Afterward, he pulled her aside and said, "You were incredible up there. A natural. I'm so proud of you. We did this together. No, you're doing this yourself. I may have provided resources, but you're the one making it happen. You're the one with the vision and the heart to see it through. Don't diminish your role in this." Leah was learning to accept praise, to recognize her own strengths and accomplishments. It was a process, unlearning years of putting herself last and making herself small. But with Ethan's support and her own growing confidence, she was getting better at it. They set a wedding date, 6 months away in the spring when the garden would be in full bloom. Leah wanted something intimate and meaningful, not a huge production. Just the people who mattered most, celebrating in the space where Ethan had proposed. Planning the wedding was surprisingly fun. They chose simple decorations, local flowers, a small string quartet. The menu would feature comfort food instead of fancy cuisine. Everything was designed to be accessible and comfortable, to feel like a celebration rather than a performance. "I want to write my own vows," Leah said one evening while they were reviewing guest lists. "Me too. I want to say exactly what you mean to me in my own words." They worked on their vows separately, keeping them secret from each other. Leah spent weeks trying to capture everything she felt. The gratitude for his trust, the respect for his strength, the deep and abiding love that had grown from the most unlikely beginning. 2 weeks before the wedding, Rachel helped Leah choose her dress. Not a traditional white gown, but a flowing emerald green dress that matched her ring. It was elegant and simple and felt perfectly like herself. "You look happy," Rachel observed as Leah stood in front of the mirror. "Really genuinely happy. I'm glad. After everything you've been through, you deserve this." "I never thought I'd get here," Leah admitted. "I spent so many years taking care of everyone else, I forgot to imagine what my own happiness might look like. But this is it. This is everything." The night before the wedding, Ethan and Leah stayed in separate rooms, honoring the tradition of not seeing each other. Leah lay in bed in her old apartment, Rachel sleeping on the couch, and thought about how much her life had changed in less than 2 years. She thought about that first night at Romano's, about how close she'd come to walking away. About all the moments since then that had tested them, challenged them, forced them to grow. About the pain they'd worked through and the love they'd built. And she fell asleep smiling, excited for tomorrow and all the tomorrows that would come after. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and beautiful. Spring sunshine poured through the windows of Ethan's house, illuminating the garden where white chairs were arranged in neat rows, where flowers bloomed in every color, where everything was ready for the celebration to come. Leah got ready in one of the guest rooms with Tasha, Rachel, and Monica. They laughed and cried and told stories while doing hair and makeup. Her mother arrived mid-morning, looking healthier than she had in years. The stroke's effects finally faded to almost nothing. "You look beautiful, baby," her mother said, tears streaming down her face. "Just beautiful. Your daddy would be so proud." "I wish he could be here," Leah said, her own tears threatening to ruin her makeup. He is here. In your heart, in your kindness, in everything good you do. He's here. Meanwhile, in another part of the house, Ethan was getting ready with Gerald and a few close friends from the company. He'd chosen a charcoal gray suit with an emerald pocket square to match Leah's dress. His wheelchair was polished to a shine, and he looked confident and happy and ready to start this new chapter. Nervous? Gerald asked as he helped Ethan with his tie. Terrified. But in a good way. In an excited way. She's good for you. The best thing that ever happened to you. I know. I'm the luckiest man alive. At 3 o'clock the guests began to arrive. 50 people total. Leah's family and friends, Ethan's small circle of trusted companions, colleagues from the foundation, a few of Leah's favorite patients who'd become like family. Patricia Wu from the company. Dr. Harrison, Ethan's physical therapist. People who mattered, people who'd supported them, people who understood the journey that had brought them to this moment. The ceremony was set to begin at 4. At 3:55, Leah stood at the back of the garden with her mother, who would walk her down the aisle. Through the French doors she could see the guests settling into their seats, see the string quartet preparing to play, see Ethan waiting at the front with the officiant. Ready? Her mother asked. More than ready. The music started, a beautiful rendition of Canon in D. Tasha went first as maid of honor, radiant in a soft blue dress. Then it was Leah's turn. She stepped into the garden on her mother's arm and everything else fell away. The guests, the decorations, the flowers. All she could see was Ethan, sitting at the front in his wheelchair, his face transforming with joy and love as he watched her walk toward him. This was it. This was everything. When she reached the front, her mother kissed her cheek and sat down. Leah took her place beside Ethan, taking his hands in hers. The officiant began to speak about love and commitment and the journey these two people had shared. But Leah barely heard it. She was too focused on Ethan's eyes, on the way he was looking at her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. Then it was time for vows. Ethan went first. Leah, 2 years ago I was a man who'd given up. I'd lost my mobility, my confidence, my faith in humanity. I was convinced that my life was over, that nothing good would ever happen again. Then you sat down across from me at a restaurant and stayed. Not because you pitied me. Not because you were obligated. But because you saw something in me worth knowing. His voice was strong, steady, filled with emotion but not overcome by it. You taught me that strength isn't about walking or running or being physically perfect. It's about showing up, being honest, choosing love even when it's scary. You taught me to trust again, to hope again, to believe that I deserve good things. Every day with you is a gift I never thought I'd receive. He took a shaky breath. I promise to be worthy of your love. To communicate honestly, to support your dreams, to never take you for granted. I promise to keep working on myself, to keep growing, to be the partner you deserve. I promise to love you through easy days and hard days, through celebrations and challenges, through everything life throws at us. You're my home, Leah. And I'm so grateful I get to build a life with you. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Leah squeezed his hands, tears streaming down her own face. Then it was her turn. Ethan, when I met you, I was a woman who'd forgotten to dream for herself. I spent so much time taking care of everyone else that I'd lost sight of my own needs, my own desires, my own right to happiness. You reminded me that I'm allowed to want things. Allowed to be loved. Allowed to build a life that's mine. She smiled through her tears. You make me laugh. You challenge my assumptions. You support my work and celebrate my victories like they're your own. You've never made me feel small or less than or like I should be grateful just to be in your presence. You treat me as an equal partner in everything, and that's the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. I promise to love you exactly as you are. Not despite your wheelchair but including it because it's part of your story and your story is beautiful. I promise to be honest even when it's hard. To communicate instead of withdrawing. To fight for us when things get difficult because relationships worth having are worth working for. I promise to dream with you, to build with you, to create a life filled with kindness and hope and love. You're my best friend, my partner, my home. And I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. The officiant was crying too. Pretty much everyone was crying. But they were happy tears, joyful tears, tears that celebrated the love these two people had found against all odds. By the power vested in me, the officiant said, his voice thick with emotion, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Ethan, you may kiss your bride. Ethan pulled Leah down and kissed her, deep and sweet and full of promise. The guests erupted in applause and cheers. And when they pulled apart, both were beaming, radiant with happiness. They rolled back down the aisle together, Leah's hand on Ethan's shoulder, waving to their guests. The reception was held right there in the garden, with round tables set up under the trees, string lights creating a magical glow as the sun began to set. Dinner was served, comfort food that made everyone happy. Tasha gave a speech about how stubborn her sister was and how glad she was that Ethan was even more stubborn. Gerald spoke about watching Ethan transform from a man who'd given up to someone full of life and purpose. Monica apologized again for the whole blind date setup and thanked them for proving that sometimes the craziest plans work out. When it was time for the first dance, the DJ played their song, A Thousand Years by Christina Perri. Ethan had been working on his standing for months in physical therapy, preparing for this moment. With Leah's support and his determination, he stood from his wheelchair and held her close as they swayed to the music. He could only stand for about 2 minutes before needing to sit again, but those 2 minutes were perfect. Absolutely perfect. The guests watched in awed silence, witnessing not just a dance but a testament to perseverance and love and refusing to let limitations define you. "I love you," Ethan whispered in her ear. "I love you too. Forever." The party continued late into the night. People danced and laughed and celebrated. Leah's mother told embarrassing stories about Leah as a child. Ethan's physical therapist congratulated him on his progress. Patricia Wu cornered them both to talk about expansion plans for the foundation. Around midnight, Leah and Ethan snuck away to a quiet corner of the garden. They sat together on a bench, Ethan's wheelchair beside them, and looked up at the stars. "We did it," Leah said. "We actually did it. We did. And it was perfect. What do you think comes next? After tonight, after the honeymoon, when real life starts again? More of this. More building, more dreaming, more working towards something meaningful. More quiet nights at home. More laughter. More challenges we face together. More love every single day." "That sounds perfect." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, processing the weight of the day, the significance of the promises they'd made. Finally, Ethan spoke. "I want to tell you something. About that first night at Romano's. When you sat down and stayed, I remember thinking that maybe miracles were real. That maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. And every day since then you've proven that instinct right. You're my miracle, Leah. My second chance at everything. You're my miracle too. You showed me that it's okay to be taken care of sometimes. That accepting help isn't weakness. That love can come from the most unexpected places and in the most unexpected ways." "Here's to unexpected ways," Ethan said, raising an imaginary glass. "To unexpected ways," Leah agreed, laughing. They returned to the reception for the last hour of dancing. When the final song played and the last guests departed, Leah and Ethan were left alone in their garden, surrounded by the evidence of their celebration, exhausted and happy and married. "Ready to start our life together?" Ethan asked. "I feel like we already did. Months ago. But yes. Ready to make it official." They went inside their home, the one they'd built together, filled with pieces of both their lives woven into something new. And as they fell asleep that night, wrapped in each other's arms, both knew with absolute certainty that they'd found what they'd been searching for all along. Not perfection. Not a fairy tale ending where all problems disappeared. But something better. A real partnership built on honesty and trust and the willingness to keep showing up for each other, day after day, through whatever came next. 3 months after the wedding, the Second Chances Foundation announced their largest initiative yet. A nationwide program providing technology, training, and mentorship to students with disabilities. It was Leah's idea, inspired by watching Ethan navigate a world not built for people like him. The program was a massive success. Within a year, they'd helped over 5,000 students access adaptive technology and educational opportunities they'd previously been denied. The impact was measurable, significant, and deeply meaningful. Ethan and Leah appeared on news programs, gave interviews, and spoke at conferences about their work. They used their platform to advocate for accessibility, for inclusion, for seeing people beyond their limitations. And they did it together as equal partners, amplifying each other's voices and celebrating each other's contributions. One evening about a year after their wedding, they sat in their garden again. The place where Ethan had proposed. The place they'd gotten married. The place that had become their sanctuary. "I'm pregnant," Leah said, her hand on her still flat stomach. "About 8 weeks along. I wanted to wait until I was sure before telling you." Ethan's face went through a dozen emotions in 5 seconds. Shock, joy, fear, excitement, overwhelming love. "We're having a baby? We're having a baby." He pulled her close, tears streaming down his face. "I can't believe it. I never thought I'd have this. A family. A child. A future this beautiful. Believe it? Because it's real. All of it's real. They told their families at a dinner party the following week. Tasha screamed again. Leah's mother cried again. Gerald smiled wider than anyone had ever seen him smile. And everyone celebrated the next chapter in this love story that had started with a blind date and become something extraordinary. The pregnancy wasn't easy. Leah had morning sickness that lasted all day. She was exhausted constantly, emotional, physically uncomfortable. But Ethan was there for all of it, supporting her, taking care of her, proving that he could be relied on through the hard times as well as the good. When their daughter was born on a snowy December morning, both Leah and Ethan cried as they held her for the first time. She was perfect, tiny and beautiful and already loved beyond measure. What should we name her? Ethan asked, his finger clasped in his daughter's tiny fist. Hope, Leah said. Because that's what you gave me. What we gave each other. Hope for better days. Hope for real love. Hope that even when life seems impossible, beautiful things can still happen. Hope Cross, Ethan said, testing it out. It's perfect. They brought Hope home to a house filled with love and laughter and the promise of a beautiful future. And as Leah watched Ethan hold their daughter, as she saw the pure joy and love on his face, she thought about that first night at Romano's. She'd almost walked away. Almost let fear and uncertainty keep her from the best thing that ever happened to her. But she'd stayed. And that choice had led to this. A family, a partnership, a life beyond anything she'd dared to dream. Thank you, she whispered to Ethan one night as they watched Hope sleep in her crib. For what? For not giving up. For fighting for us. For being exactly who you are. Thank you for seeing me. For staying. For loving me enough to work through the hard parts. Always, Leah promised. Through every hard part and every beautiful part. Always. And she meant it. Because love wasn't about perfect moments or easy choices. It was about showing up, being honest, and choosing each other every single day. It was about building something together that was stronger than what either could create alone. It was about kindness and hope and refusing to let fear win. And that was exactly what they would teach their daughter as she grew up in a house full of love. That life would be hard sometimes, that people would disappoint her sometimes, that she'd face challenges that seemed insurmountable. But if she led with kindness, held on to hope, and loved with her whole heart, beautiful things could happen. Have you ever been in a relationship where trust had to be rebuilt from the ground up? What did you learn about love and forgiveness? Drop a comment below and subscribe to see more stories about second chances and the power of choosing love, even when it's scary. What would you have done in Leah's position when Ethan pushed her away?